Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on May 8th, 2024, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name's Janet Williams, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 8 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It's being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review have all been posted on the town's website. So to all participants, whether you're attending by phone or online, please remain muted until you've been recognized by the chair. And if you're on the phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. And if you're online and you're not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off until you've been recognized. You can indicate that you wish to speak by using the raised hand feature. When recognized, please remember to identify yourself for the record. So that we have a record of a quorum attending today, I'll now ask each commission member to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Karen Latin.
Present.
Bob Rawls.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
She's here.
She was there a second ago.
Telemetry tests.
Aye.
There you are. Okay, gotcha. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Maservi is not here today. Eric Hilbert.
Present.
Associate Member Bob Delvecchio.
Present.
All right, and I'm here, so we've established that we have a quorum. Before we begin the agenda, I'll ask Paul Whiteman, our conservation agent, whether there are any requests for continuances today.
I think he's muted.
Paul, can you hear us?
Hello.
There you
Yes,
go. Okay.
I am here.
Yep.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. We have 3 requests for continuances. I'll read the legal ads when we get to that point in the agenda. The 3 are 155 and 157 Bridge Street. That's continued to May 22nd. 30 Sears Point Lane is continued to May 22nd. And 26 Salt Pond Road is continued to May 22nd.
Oh, May 22nd. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Okay. And Salt Pond. No, Salt Pond is going forward.
Right below Sears.
Where is Sears? Oh, there it is. Okay, May 22nd, I have it written there. All right. So at this point, Paul, can you begin to lead us through the agenda? Thank
Thank you, Madam Chair. First on the agenda is the requested order of conditions. The address is 53 Marshview Road, Elvira and Laurel Mastrobono, map 8C, parcel S38, DEP number SE10 3676, and the project is demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, David Clark on behalf of the Mastrobonos. Phil Cheney is in person today to avoid any issues with communication. And I believe the Mastrobonos are online. The way we left it last time, there were 2 issues. One hadn't filed with zoning board yet. We do have a date that is 2 weeks from tomorrow. And the commission asked for some changes to the mitigation, so we didn't have to go into naturalized areas to plant. And Phil has submitted a revised plan, and he's here to talk about that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Phil Cheney, landscape designer. You have the new mitigation plan, which we adjusted according to some of the concerns and requests. We basically slid the plantings to the south to areas that are a little bit more disturbed, and we included the addition of a river birch tree to provide some of the buffering and screening that was talked about with the butters and in general. So we have that new plan, and there was also some concerns raised about additional landscaping being shown, okay, at the house. We had the 4 inkberries on the plan, and that's really all that is intended. The remainder of the house that's within the buffer zone is porch and patio, and so we have no plantings intended for those areas. So what you see is what's intended at this point.
Okay, so there's, do you think there will be some sort of landscape plan that will be ultimately?
That's basically what's intended, no, I say,
Okay.
They may decide to do something down the road, but at this point here, this is all that's really looking for. There's
So
really
you-
not much of a foundation to be
Right.
planting, and the rest is just going to be natural and open.
Okay, so we don't anticipate having a landscape
No,
plan?
this is
All right, so we had made a note in here to ask about that
Yep.
and have it submitted, but
Correct.
I will take that out.
I have a question.
Go ahead, questions?
Can you tell me why you took out the sweet fern and added more northern bayberries so that we don't have any variety anymore?
Yeah, the sweet fern was going in a location which there were some objections about whether or not
Right.
it was really required there or not. And the area that we're moving the mitigation to really benefited a bit more from a screening standpoint and the ability to use plants with bigger mass than just the sweet fern. So I thought that was very appropriate to use that there.
Okay. I would have liked to have seen more variety, and I think at our last meeting, which was quite a while ago, we actually had said maybe add more sweet ferns or something. So I found it interesting that they were taken out.
Well, see, we're not talking about a lot of plants.
No, you're not. You're right.
Okay, other questions or comments on the order?
I put some in there, I don't know if you've seen them.
Yep, so the order's been, the draft order was in the Dropbox. There have been some edits made. I think that was done before it was put on My Town Gov, because you guys saw the landscape issue coming at you. Foundation plants in the aura must be 75% straight native, patio will be pervious. And I think we changed the 175 to 180 square feet of the mitigation. That was the
yes.
change that was made at the last hearing. And I've updated the dating of the mitigation plan revised 4/15. David, the site plan didn't change, is that right? The site plan did not get revised when the mitigation plan was revised.
No.
Okay, that's still 3/7. Okay,
Yeah, we only have one.
yep. Other questions or comments? Bob, go ahead.
I just had a question. On the plan, Phil, you label the northern bayberry as there being 9, and then in the key down below, it says 7.
I didn't even catch that. I did catch it, I forgot to say.
I'm sorry, yeah, the plan only shows 7, the label is inaccurate on the plan. I'm not sure why that came out that way.
You
see
make
this?
that change then?
I can make that adjustment
Okay,
and add it on.
all right.
Thank you.
Good catch there. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the bayberry is a good choice in that area, it's full sun, they should do well.
Exactly.
Great.
Anybody else? Anybody online or on the phone with any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion then to close the hearing and approve the,
Are we?
oh, no, I'm
approving it?
sorry, we
No.
can't, we are set, but we can't vote on it yet until you guys go to ZBA on the 23rd.
Is that a new policy, or?
Well, it's just that in case they make it, anything gets changed, then we would have to go back and go through an amendment process.
Well, if they do ask for changes, it won't be within your jurisdiction.
Probably not, but we've been stung a couple times, so we try to approve it, we're ready to go with it, and we will vote on it and issue it at the hearing right after,
June 5th.
on June 5th, after the ZBA goes forward.
Okay?
Okay. Just to be on the safe side. All right, a motion then to continue 53 Marshview to June the 5th.
I move that we continue 53 Marshview Road to the meeting on June 5th.
I'm sorry, I had a hand up, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, who is that?
I'm the owner of the
Oh,
property.
yes, hello.
I'm a little bit wondering now for another continuance, and I have a real practical consideration, is the two men in that room there, Phil Cheney and Clark and David Clark, I have to pay them every time they come to this meeting. So if there's another continuance, I have to pay them again. So
They,
if it's not required, I don't know why.
it's
It needs to be
really
other
administrative. They wouldn't need to come unless the zoning board required any kind of changes that impacted us. In which case, no matter what, we'd have to go through another process of approving any further changes. But if zoning does not, this would just be a matter of approving it and issuing it.
Okay, I just thought I heard David just say there's nothing that the zoning board would say that would impact this.
We would expect not, but sometimes we've been surprised. So just as a matter of, it would be a lot easier and better for you if that were to happen, and after we had issued this, you'd have to go through a whole request to amend, and we'd have to go through an amendment process, which is way more time-consuming and expensive than us just doing an administrative vote to approve it and issue it.
Okay, so if there's no issues at ZBA, nothing affects that discussed here, it's just an administrative
Yep.
task that.
We'll just
that
vote,
doesn't-
we will vote and issue it, and that'll be that.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
Yeah, we won't make any changes if ZBA doesn't change anything in our area.
I move that we continue 53 Marshview Road to the meeting on June 5th for an order of conditions.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we will not necessarily see you. Hopefully, everything will go well at zoning, and
Thank
we
you.
will issue this on June 5th. Thank you. All right, Paul, what's next?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda is an extension request for an order of conditions. The address is 54 and 0 Grosse Pond Road. The applicants Joan and Paul Parsons, map 10K, parcels 17L6 and 18L5, DEP number SE103498. The project is removal and reconstruction of a single-family dwelling and associated site improvements. The applicants are requesting an extension to allow monitoring and restoration to continue with those maintenance activities, including invasive species management. The order expires on 7/15/24, so an extension for 1 year would bring it out to 7/15/24.
25.
25.
Oh, sorry, 25, you're correct.
And this
Okay.
is their first?
This is the first. Yep, the order was issued in July of 2021. So this is the first extension. And the mitigation plants were installed in the fall of '22, so they only had one full growing season. So Jen's online, I see. Is there anything else you want to tell us about it, Jen?
Nope, I just wanted to be here in case you guys had any additional questions. So everything has gone in. I mean, we've been carrying out the plan just as it was permitted. We just need a little bit more time to meet the requirements before COC.
Okay. Anybody have questions or comments? All right, ready for a motion then to approve the extension?
I move that we approve a 1-year extension for 54 and 0 Grosse Pond Road to July 15th, 2025.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's been approved. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, Paul, what's next?
Okay, next on the agenda is 83 Seagull Road. This is an extension request. And 0 Tisquantum Road, Outermost Harbor Marine, map 15A1 and 15A2, parcels 12-H98 and 1-N133, DEP number SE103334. The project is proposed dredging and sand placement. Extension requested to allow time to combine open orders for future dredging. The order expires on 7/15/24, and extension will carry it to 7/15/25.
And do we want to open the companion
Yes.
request?
We can do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
Yep.
So the next one is also 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wilkins Way and 0 Starfish Lane, Outermost Marine Harbors. The applicant, map 15A1, parcel 12-H98, DEP number SE103333. proposed marina expansion and expanded dredge footprint. The extension requested to allow time to combine open orders for dredging. The order expires on 6/19/24, and an extension will carry it to 6/19/25.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online or in person here to speak to this?
Well, that's easy.
Okay. So Paul, in your conversations, I know you had conversations with the folks at Outermost. Can you summarize
Yes.
what's happening there and why they need
Yes.
these extensions?
Harrison Kahn and I have talked on several occasions. I visited the site. He's retained a new engineer. These orders are due to expire, so he wants to keep them open. He wants to combine them. He's hired a new engineer to come up with a new plan, which will address, where the spoils are going to go, dredging the channel, and sort of take a new look at it in terms of the footprint. So that's why he's requesting an extension, because he's going to combine all this into probably one order. But that's what's going on. And just so everyone's aware, there is nothing that's going to happen until the fall because of the required closure dredge dates for piping plovers and other required closings. So there's nothing that he can do until the fall anyway. So at that time, he hopes to come in with a new plan from BSC Group.
Okay, so these two dredging permits are the only two permits for the dredging
Yes.
work? And
That's correct.
there are a number of other permits that are outstanding at this facility, but these are the only two with dredging. We would be very encouraging of an effort to combine all these into a single permit, and I know there've been talk previously, a couple of years back, about a single master permit for the facility, but maybe that's too much. At least the two dredging permits can be combined so that there's clarity, because it's hard to figure out when they slightly differ in their disposal areas and dredging zones. So if you speak to him again, just keep encouraging him to work with BSC and come back with a new proposal, a new NOI, and we'll close these out.
I shall do that. I spent a great deal of time going through these files to
I believe
They're,
that, and I've already
very-
extended
yeah.
my sympathies to the permit coordinator who has
yeah.
got a promotion to be able to
Yeah.
sort through the dozen or so outstanding
God.
permits.
Thank God for Crystal.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so between the two, there are restrictions on winter flounder, horseshoe crabs, piping plovers, so there is only a small window of opportunity to do the work this fall. Hopefully that gets done, we don't have to extend again, and we would look forward to a new filing. Any questions, comments? All right.
Hi,
Oh.
this is Lane Zimmerman, 19 Lobster Lane. Sorry, I'm dialed in, so I can't do the hand raise feature.
That's okay,
Apologize.
so can you tell me your name again?
First name is Lane, Lane, Zimmerman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zimmerman, go ahead.
We have a question about the goals of the report that the engineer will be forming. My understanding is it'll definitely, have to do with the functionality of the channels that Outermost Marina uses. But I'm also wondering if there'll be any focus on impacts on flooding in that area.
Go ahead, Paul, yeah.
Yeah, I can't speak to that at this point in time. I suppose as we move through. Yeah, I think that it's a legitimate concern. Obviously, you're aware that the whole area floods down there now. We've got a whole situation going on with flooding in the immediate area as well as at Outermost Harbor. So I'm sure they're going to look at that and try and address it. But I can't give you any specific information at this time. I think that's what's under review right now. So sometime, if you want to contact us again in the fall, perhaps they'll have a better handle on that. But we certainly are open to giving you any information we get at any point in time, which is public information with respect to these two projects.
That's great to hear. Thank you. And I'm thinking, though, that making contact again in the fall might be a little too late, because if the intention is, if we do have this narrow window to accomplish the project, anything that's found by the engineer would have to be found in the next couple months, right, to leave window for discussion?
Not necessarily, but I'll tell you what, we'll solve it this way. Why don't you send an email to me, the conservation agent, and I'll make sure that you get copied on this issue as we move along.
Awesome. And can I find your email on a website?
It's on the Town of Chatham website. Conservation agent.
Okay.
I don't want to give it over here. Just go on the town website and you'll see me there, and you can just grab the email and I'll respond to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go with an order.
I move that we grant a one-year extension
Hey, sorry.
Hello.
I'm sorry. I'm also on audio, so unable to see or raise my hand. But
That's okay.
This is Julia
That's
Berg,
okay.
and I had a question.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Julia Berg
Okay.
from 6 Starfish Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I was just hoping to get a clear definition on what expansion is mentioned in the agenda and for this extension. I know that the marina was working on a boat launch, and I was curious if that work has been completed or if they're planning to do other expansion activities that hasn't been shared to date.
Paul, do you have any information on that? It's unfortunate that Mr. Khan's not here today because he would be able to answer these questions.
Yeah, but I mean, again, Ms. Berg has contacted me several times over the last 2 weeks, and, I will stay in touch with her on this issue, but I can't answer that question at this time because that's something that Mr. Khan and his engineer are kind of working on now. So it's a work in progress, and you certainly have every right to attend hearings and make comments, and, we'll keep you in the loop along the way.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I guess my concern is that if something is approved today for an undefined expansion, that we wouldn't have a voice as a butters to say,
Hey, this is Crystal. I think I can clear this one up.
Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
So the description on the agenda is the exact description that was on the original permit.
Right.
And it just says extension because they're asking for, they wanted an expansion on that particular permit when they filed it.
Yep.
This is nothing that's going to expand this permit.
Right.
To give them any extra area to dredge.
Right.
It's only what's in the permit that was issued back in 2019, I think it was.
Yep. All this does is extends the expiration date of the approved permit.
Right. I think I explained that earlier too, but yeah, Crystal's right for clarification.
Yep. No, it does say expanded dredge footprint, but that meant the original permit from 2019.
Correct.
Okay.
right, and I think the concern of the neighbors is that there isn't specificity to really any of this on where dredge spoils are placed or, the outcome of the engineer report or what construction's been going on. And so I appreciate that I now have a connect with Paul, but since it's kind of a question mark at this point, we want to make sure that we're in the loop and these are being communicated to us by our neighbors.
Yep. Well, Ms. Berg, I'll tell you that if Paul can get you the date that we heard these permit applications, and you can go on the Conservation Commission website, and using that date, you can pull up all of the plans that were filed that would have identified disposal areas and dredge areas. So all of that would be specified in the plans, which don't change. The plans are still the same.
Yes, I came into the office on April 26th.
Oh, okay.
And I reviewed the plans. There just doesn't seem to be an answer on these important questions on the spoils placement and on the dredging. So that's what the output of the engineering report is my understanding.
Okay. No, it's specified. Sure. Yep. It's just always, it's specified, and that's where they have to put it. And if they don't, then it needs to be brought to the town's attention, and something will be done.
Now we have RB.
Who is RB with a hand raised?
Hi, that's Rod Barabee, 10 Starfish Lane. I was just wondering, along with placement of the spoils, that Outermost has been bringing an excavator across our property to get out to the beach. And I was wondering if their permit gives them permission to do that.
The permits are very explicit that they do not confer any private property rights on anybody. All we do is approve a project. It's up to the applicant to secure any rights that they need, such as license to cross property or easement rights or whatever it would be. So no, the permit would not give them the right to cross a property.
Thank you. To this point, they've been out there at least twice, maybe more, and we feel that they've crossed our property, taking down a fence to get over there, and have not asked permission from any of us at any point.
Notify the town.
And they dumped the spoils on our beach, sand full of rocks and shells and whatever other debris.
Yeah. The second part that you just mentioned, if they're disposing of sand in an area that's not permitted, that would be something that we would look into and Paul would check into. In terms of crossing private property, that is not something that we can get involved in. So sadly, I would tell you that you would have to get some counsel on what your rights are as a property owner to stop somebody from crossing it without authorization.
Maybe post a no trespassing sign would help.
That help. Lots of people do that.
Okay, thank you.
Are we
Thank
ready?
you. Okay. Anybody else?
I see a hand.
Paul, what's the way that you recommend filing one of those complaints you mentioned? Is there a way of doing that on the website?
Who is this?
Who is speaking?
I'm sorry, this is Lane Zimmerman again.
Oh,
I was
Lane.
speaking earlier.
Okay. Oh,
First and foremost, I always encourage the abutters to contact Outermost Marine to see if you can resolve it before you bring it to us, but you can certainly. Well, okay. I know there have been disputes in the past. I haven't been involved in any of those, and I know that there are allegations on sort of both sides of the fence on this one. Someone did this, no, I didn't. So that's kind of what's going on. You can email me, and usually when we get a request for any kind of a violation, we go right out and check it out, and then make a report to the chair, and we take it from there. So you can contact the agent if something happens in the future, and I'd be happy to investigate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any?
Hi, this is
Go ahead.
Amanda Lynn, 22 Starfish. I just had a question, like, kind of, I guess, building on some of the other questions that were asked around the dredging spoils, and I guess to Rob's comment that there are things that are put on the beach. Like, is it part of the study, the assessment? I know there was mention around, like, what the impact it has on flooding, but are they also looking at, like, the environmental impact on local wildlife? Whatever they're proposing as part of the expansion and dredging?
Well, if there's further extension or expansion of a dredging area or a change in the disposal area, then by proposing that, they would automatically be required to provide an assessment of the impacts of those activities. That would be part of what they would be filing with us, and that we hope and we expect will be filed sometime soon.
Okay.
Okay, so you just watch, and it'll be noticed. Public notice will go out in the newspaper, and to all abutters, you'll receive a notice in the mail when they file something. So you'll have you'll have a couple weeks at least advance notice of the date of the hearing. And I encourage you to come and bring your questions and concerns and ask them directly.
Is there anybody else? Before I start?
This is Rod Barabee again. One thing I wanted to note is it appears that years ago, the address that they used to notify us was a non-existent 0 Starfish Lane. So no one received any notice. So I've just asked that they actually use an address that is relevant.
Don't they have to do that with the town?
Well, they have to, they are required to do it by certified mail, so there would be a record if it came back undeliverable.
Right. But if the address needs to be updated, they have to
You said-
contact the town.
The assessor's office.
The assessor's office is where the addresses are pulled from.
This is Crystal.
Yep, go ahead, Crystal, always with the answers.
So
Send
the
an email.
assessor's office is where they get the list from, and the assessor's office is where the tax bills go. So that address has to be corrected with them, but that's not on our end or the assessor's end.
Right, so, Mr. Barabee, if you're not getting tax bills either, because they're going to something that is coming from the assessor's office that doesn't exist, you should get in touch with them and find out what address they're using and get that corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, motion.
All right. I move that we approve a one-year extension for 83 Seagull Road and 0 to Squantum Road to July 15th, 2025.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that's approved for another
I
year.
move that
Go ahead.
we approve a one-year extension for 83 Seagull Road, 30 Wilkes Way, and 0 Starfish Lane to June 19th, 2025.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right. So those two are both approved, and hopefully we'll get a new filing and can address a lot of these questions. Okay. All right, Paul, where do we go next?
Okay. Yeah, next on the agenda is a request to amend an order of conditions. The address is 155 and 157 Bridge Street, Eastwood Companies, map 15B, parcel 1B, DEP number SE 103452, demo 2 existing dwellings and a pool, reconstruct. The amendment is to relocate the dwellings further away from the resource area. The applicant is requesting a continuance to May 22nd. There was a glitch in the filing by the applicant, so.
Okay. I move that we continue 155 and 157 Bridge Street to the meeting on May 22nd, 2024 for amended order of conditions.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's continued to the 22nd. All right, Paul, what's up next?
Okay, now we're down to notice of intents. 240 and 438 George Ryder Road, 1652 Main Street, Chatham Municipal Airport is the applicant. Map 9F 240, 10G 438, DEP number SE 101652 Main Street, the address. Parcel 0-2, 240, 18K1, 438, 53-27, 1652 Main, and the DEP number is 103658. The proposed project includes vegetation management required to remove obstructions within navigable airspace in compliance with the Federal Aviation Administration regulations.
All right, thank you. I see
Welcome.
representatives are on the platform, so good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Commission. This is Adrienne Dunk from GZA here representing the airport.
Marco Terriano with Gale Associates, also representing the airport.
All right, good afternoon to both. So let me start by asking do you have a presentation planned for today?
Yes, I have a short presentation just to guide our discussion.
Yep. I think it may, I'm hoping that it goes in the same order that I've sort of listed the topics, but I think we all have the same topics. We know what we need to discuss today. So we'll get to them in whatever order makes the most sense. So why don't you lead off and then we'll see where it goes.
Okay. I will do that in just a moment. I'm putting it into the presentation mode. Alrighty. Yep,
There you go.
excellent. Okay. I apologize. Too many screens going on.
I know that feeling.
So today we wanted to talk about the tree measurement results down at the runway 2-4 end, just kind of review the maximum allowable height and then discuss proposed mitigation.
Okay, before you start, let me just say two
Yes.
things. One is thank you for the tree measurement, the survey and the inventory of the trees. We found that very helpful and good guiding information. And for anybody who's watching, that has been posted on MyTownGov, so you can access that report there, and it has a lot of very detailed information about the trees that were identified on the site. So, all right, with that, go ahead, Adrian.
Great, yes. So on April 17th, we did have members of the GZA staff on site down by the Cranberry Bog at the runway 2-4 end to measure trees within Conservation Commission jurisdiction. So we did provide that memorandum of results to the commission this week. And so trees that could be measured they were compared to the maximum allowable height, and they were flagged with this green flagging as shown in the pictures if they were below the maximum allowable height and would remain after the cutting activities, and they were flagged with orange if they would be removed. Many trees could not be measured because of the limitations around seeing the base of the tree and the top of the canopy of the trees, so those ones were simply not marked in the field. Two areas, the study area 1 and study area 2, were kind of measured using a accurate GPS unit to measure the total area and then count up the number of trees to be cut, trees to remain, and unmeasurable trees to give us kind of a frame of reference about the property. And here, these are the maximum allowable heights. So 35, 40, 45. And so in the field, they were able to say, okay, I'm standing next to this tree. It's allowed to be 40 feet. Now let's measure it. It's 45 feet right now. It would be cut. It's 38 feet. It would remain. So that's kind of the process in the field.
Can I just jump in really quick to clarify something? These heights that are listed, is that the obstruction zone plus the 10 feet that we had talked about before, the safety piece?
Right.
So that's, okay,
Yep.
so, all right, that's the absolute limit then, okay.
So that's the maximum allowable height, which is 10 feet below the surface height. And so that's the standard that we use, is that maximum allowable height. And so then these heights match the plans that were provided with the original NOI. So here in study area 1 in the Cranberry Bog, it was about 1,400 square feet. So 17 trees were present, and 53% of those trees would be removed, 18% would remain, and then the other 29% just couldn't be measured at this time. So as we talked about during construction, during the tree removal, the engineer on site, the representative on site, would be measuring each tree before it was cut, and we would keep a log of which trees were removed, so that we could provide that information to the commission. But there's just some physical limitations on doing that on the ground right now. Down here, this is more of a lawn area, so it was almost 1,800 square feet, but there were only 7 trees present. And here, 30% of the trees would be removed, 43% would remain, and there was still 2 trees, which represents another 30% that couldn't be measured. So this, the commission's been to this site down here in this lawn area by the home. the trees are a lot less dense. So we were able to flag, get a better measurement of them. Just as we just discussed, right, this is the maximum allowable height. It's 10 feet below the Part 77 surface. And so that is the height that we used in the field. That is the height that's shown on the plans. And that is the height that we would be cutting to and then maintaining as the airport moves into the long-term plan. So I will pause there because our next topic is mitigation. And
Yep.
so we
Yep.
can pause there and talk about the
Okay, I do think we have some
trees.
questions about this.
Sure.
And I will also remind everybody that these trees are now flagged in the field, so I would encourage everybody to go look, and you'll see which ones are actually now identified and proposed for removal, which ones stay, and the ones that don't have any mark, I suppose, are the ones that are to be determined in the field. And I know we've had some concerns about that, and I know we've talked, we've referenced the concept of having a monitor on site when this is underway so that the monitor can report, an independent monitor can report back to us what the engineer is doing in terms of identifying which trees have not been identified for removal. So that will go forward. Can you go back to your numbers for a second, please? I just want to make sure that, so
Sure.
study area 1, I have 29 trees identified for removal. Is that? So I don't know why it says 17 trees present. The table in the report has flagged for exceeding 9 pitch pines, 8 red oaks, 2 white oaks, and then others that are larger, for a total of 29 trees flagged for removal in study area 1. Yeah,
We're flagged.
yep. All together, plus 29 in study area 1 and 2 in study area 2, for a total of 31.
That 31 trees were identified across the whole property for
Okay.
removal. So that was along,
Oh, across the
So
whole
we-
buffer zone to the cranberry bog, not just the study area. Well, now I'm really
Correct.
confused because
okay,
the
we
report.
measured as
Go ahead.
many trees as we could along, that were in the buffer zone at all. And that's where the table 1 in the memo is, that was 31 trees were identified as exceeding the maximum allowable height threshold within the whole buffer zone.
So
That we
then
could
what?
measure. Study
Okay.
area 1 and 2 are just a subset so that we could get kind of a, if they're representative, we could do out the area math to get an estimate of total trees.
Right. So a study area that is representative then extrapolate into the entire buffer zone, which I thought, after you talked about the 31 that were identified, that if the totals from study area 1 are representative of the rest of the cutting area within the buffer zone to the cranberry bog, there would be 207 trees to remove, 69 to remain, and 115.
To be determined.
Right.
Yes. Yep, that's taking the 17 trees in study area 1 and extrapolating it out over the whole cutting area to the buffer zone, to the
Okay.
cranberry bog.
Okay, can you help me then get clear on the difference between what you're referring to as the 17 trees in study area 1 and what is in the memo of the 31 trees in exceeding maximum
Yes.
allowable height in table 1? Is that not the study zone? And it's bigger than the study zone, but less than the entire buffer zone. So what is that?
So table 1, that's all of the trees. So my field crew went out and they measured as many trees as they could see within all of these red polygons, which is the cutting area in the buffer zone to the cranberry bog and the buffer zone to Emery Pond. And of all of the trees that they could measure, they flagged 31 trees with orange flagging to be removed. So if you went out there today, you'd find 31 orange flagged trees. And so those trees are mostly along the driveway because that's where they could get a good sight line. Up here, you know, where there's open yard. So that's 31 total. Study area 1 is just this one yellow box. So in this one area, there were 17 trees. And based on the proportions of those to remove, those to keep, and those to be determined in the field, we did out the math that across this whole region of the Aura to the Cranberry Bog, we estimate that there's the 207 to remove, 69 to remain, and 115 to be determined in the field.
Okay. I'm still not entirely clear, and I'm looking around to see if anybody has a look on their face that like they're clear.
I do
and-
have a question on that.
All right, hold, Bob.
You measured across the whole red line along the Cranberry Bog, but the study area, you only included what's in yellow?
The study area was just a subset to be able to do some representative math. We were asked
Right.
to go out and measure what we could, and they did. They measured everything that they could measure, which was really limited to, you know, the edge of the stand of trees. And that's where they flagged, you know, the green or the orange or no flagging. You know, up in here, this area, there's no flagging because they couldn't see anything. And so to be able to extrapolate, instead of having them count up every single tree they couldn't measure, we set up these plots, study area 1 and study area 2, where they
So you have
you
an
know,
average.
recorded exactly the number to cut, keep, and determine, and then use that to extrapolate out.
Yeah, I get it.
I think I'm getting there.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Bob, you have a question. Go ahead.
May I ask, how are the study areas selected?
The study areas were selected, one by the Cranberry Bog, one by Emery Pond, because we know that they kind of had different densities, and then they were selected to go across multiple cutting heights to try to.
Were they selected to any extent because the trees were more countable in those areas?
Probably.
No, I don't.
So the study areas were selected randomly?
The study areas were selected where there was safe access, given existing conditions on the ground, and where they would go lengthwise to encompass inner and outer aura and multiple heights of cutting. You know, if they had been just down here in the 50-foot height, right, that would have skewed it towards fewer trees, or if they'd been more targeted in the 35-foot, then more trees would be cut. So it was, they were identified to go across cutting heights and have
Okay, all right.
safe access.
I have a little bit of background in this sort of analysis, and do you have a guess as to your error rate in terms of your extrapolation from the study zones to the entire project area?
No, we do not. I mean, that's why the trees will be recorded when they come down, and why we were, you know, a little bit hesitant to go out and proactively flag everything, because we can only see the edges.
Okay.
And so we can't really control which trees we can measure and which ones we can't. So we don't have an exact error bound, and that's why it is a projection of
It's a guess.
ratios.
It's an educated guess in a sense, but it's, I guess I'm not interpreting that as an extrapolation that it has an unknown certainty to it.
It has unknown certainty. We're not saying 200 trees will be cut down instead of 209. We're just trying to give the commission
A general idea.
a
yeah.
general
But it could
idea,
be- it
because
could
we
be-
know you typically have a set number, and here where we have the areas, we're unable to provide that
Okay,
firm
but it could be,
number.
it could be considerably higher, it could be considerably lower, it could be spot on, we don't really know, though. Okay,
Precisely.
all right,
Yep.
thank you.
Anybody, other questions, comments on this part? Okay, before we move on to mitigation, I want to just pause here to note that the trees in the immediate vicinity, and by that I mean 50 feet or so of the vernal pool, were not inventoried and were not captured in any way. So we've had this conversation before when we were on site. And when we were on site, at the top of the depression, above the vernal pool, the trees were very dense, and we understood immediately, looking at them, why it's so problematic to try to count them in that location. But since then, many commission members have taken it upon themselves to hike down to the bottom to stand at the edge of the vernal pool and observe the conditions in that depression. And that depression has been estimated and to be up to about 45 feet below the surrounding surface area. And we also noted, people there, that there were not all that many trees, actually, down in the immediate vicinity of the pool. So that raises the two questions. One is, you had said before that all the trees around the vernal pool were likely going to be removed because they were all in the obstruction zone. Is that really true for the, 12 to 15 or so trees that are in the immediate vicinity of the pool? Because if you stand on that edge, you are looking way up toward the surface where the runway is, and none of the trees seem to, that's 45 feet up, none of them are that height. So we're still just grappling with the number of trees coming out around the vernal pool, which we'll get to that assessment in a moment, but you can certainly understand why we are so sensitive to that issue. We're thankful for the information on the Cranberry Bog area and Emery Pond, but it's the trees around the vernal pool that really are of major concern. I wonder if you could speak to those questions.
Yes, so when we were in the field and when we've talked about around the vernal pool that most of the trees are coming out, that is limited up by the bike path at the top of the hill, not in the depression, but up at the top along the bike path. The cutting height there, the maximum allowable height is the trees can be 10 feet tall. So in the outer aura to the vernal pool, most of the trees will be removed because most of the trees are greater than 10 feet tall.
Right.
Down along the edge of the vernal pool, in the inner aura, the maximum allowable heights range from 15 to 20 feet. So trees that are greater than 20 feet tall would be removed right along the depression, right along the edge of the vernal pool, but shorter trees would remain. The maximum allowable height there it still includes that 10-foot offset, which is why it may appear that those trees are, lower than the top of the retaining wall or the runway, and that is accounting for and including that 10-foot offset so that the trees are cut. Hopefully everyone's hope is that they are cut once, the shrubs grow back, and a dense, healthy shrub community persists, and additional cutting efforts aren't needed, so there's not additional entry into the vernal pool area. So that is the real point of the 10-foot difference between the Part 77 surface and the maximum allowable height. So
it's still your belief then that virtually all of the trees at the bottom of the depression in the immediate vicinity of the vernal pool will need to be cut because they exceed
if
the
they're
maximum
greater than
allowable.
20 feet tall, they would need to be cut.
Are there some that would not need to be cut?
I can't answer that as I have not measured those individual trees. There's canopy, that is how we established the cutting areas, is anywhere that the canopy is extending above the maximum allowable height using aerial survey. So the aerial survey indicates there is canopy above 20 feet tall. We cannot tell from that aerial survey if there's a 15-foot tall tree right on the edge of the vernal pool, and then up the hill a little bit is a 30-foot tree with canopy extending. We just know that there's canopy in that protected zone. And that's why we measure each tree and we cut it. And so if there is a shorter tree right on the edge of the vernal pool that's 10 feet tall or 15 feet tall, that tree would be allowed to remain. But we have not been able to measure each trunk, the height of each trunk, to make that tree by tree decision to date.
Well, I think we understand that as the further up the slope you go into the denser growth of trees. But in the immediate vicinity of the pool, there's just not, the trees are much sparser. It's primarily shrub in that area, with a scattering of trees. That it struck everybody who stood there and looked at it that those trees could easily be measured and identified whether they are staying or going.
I can't speak to that specific tree unless I'm standing there with the hypsometer and saying, yes, I can see the bottom, and yes, I can see the top unobstructed by.
Is it possible to do that, to have somebody go and measure those trees?
Yeah, I have a question. Have you been there? Have you been in there?
Yes.
You have?
Adrian, I think he's asking you, yeah.
Yes, I have been in there. Yes, I delineated that vernal pool.
Yeah.
I have been in there.
So, is there a follow-up or just?
No.
Okay, so we're back to that. Is it possible to identify the trees in the immediate vicinity that are going to be removed, much as was done at the Cranberry Bog?
It is possible to try. I cannot confirm that it can be done. There's just some, especially on the hillside, there are limitations to what you can see with the hypsometer, so it can be tried. I do not know what the ratio will be of flag to keep, flag to cut, and to be determined. I simply don't.
Okay.
I don't know that number. So.
Go for it.
So would you be
I'm not
willing
sure.
to attempt so that we would have an idea at least down at close to the vernal pool, whether all of those trees are coming out or some can stay? Because some are across the vernal pool toward the airport, which to me, you could probably use that hypsometer to measure, and it's not as dense down there is why we're curious.
No, I understand it's not as dense, and I'm not trying to be uncooperative. I'm trying to consider what is the value of this effort, what is the likelihood of success, and what information is it going to provide to the commission.
Well, we won't know the success until we try. And I think we understand that we don't know the outcome, but if we don't try, we won't know. And so I think at least what I'd like, and I don't know how everybody else feels, so I'm not going to speak for the whole commission, but if we could get an idea down at the bottom that, all of them are coming out, or some of them aren't going to have to, I think it helps.
And you hear us keep saying, we're, down at the bottom, at the edge of the vernal pool, in very close proximity to the vernal pool. I think we understand the challenges and the problems as you move up the slope, And I can't honestly give you a bright line and say, okay, anything within 20 feet of the vernal pool is what we're really concerned about. But, I mean, you've got that idea, because what we know and what we get worried about is the shading that those trees provide. So if there's one within 5 or 10 feet that could be saved, it's worth the effort, it seems to us, to find out whether it can be and leave it.
Just to give us an idea.
Janet. Adrian, I want to, from my perspective, the report that you sent in that gave us much more specificity on the trees that would be removed, remain, and to be determined in the area that you did study, to have that for the vernal pool is, for me, even more important, because that area is, vernal pools are capital V, capital P in everything that we do. And I think that if we could have some feeling of trees that are going to stay and trees that absolutely have to go, it would just give us a sense to be able to make a better decision and have a better sense of understanding of what's going to happen down there.
And we know that you're not going to be able to do what you did probably at the Cranberry Bog and Emery Pond. We just want to get an idea. We're not asking you to say this will extrapolate to, 200 trees coming out and, 100 to be determined or whatever, like you did at the other end. We want to know around the vernal pool, the perimeter. What, we're trying to get an idea of what it's going to look like after this. And, in order to write our conditions and our findings, it would help us with being able to accurately write some of it.
I mean, we're very reserved on this. This is not something that happens every day where we're getting an applicant that wants to cut trees down in a vernal pool. I mean, that's usually, that wouldn't even be, it's unheard of. So we have to try to do what we can, to get specifics. And I think that was an excellent idea to get, you did the analysis on those two, and the vernal pool's actually more important. There's only, what, 2 of them, in the town of Chatham?
I don't even know where the other is.
2 certified, yeah.
Matt Karen has his hand up. He's part of our project team.
Yes.
Matt?
Hey there, good afternoon. I just wanted to respond to that comment that it's unheard of. I just want to remind the commission that there's been tree clearing in vernal pools throughout the Commonwealth. And most recently, we did one in the town of Norton. We received an order of conditions, and we recently received a certificate of compliance for the work that was done there. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's not that it's not unheard of. It is done.
Well, I want to make sure it's clear.
Successfully.
What I meant was Chatham, so I want to make that clear to you. I'm talking about Chatham.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're both on the same page. Thank you.
Now we are.
Okay. All right, so you hear us, you know that we're not interested in the same exact kind of analysis. We understand that the dense trees toward the top of the slope are likely all going. We looked at them, we understood that. We are really only interested in whether or not the ones that are providing shading and are very close to the edge of the vernal pool all have to be removed or not.
We can attempt to measure those.
Okay.
That'd be great.
That's all we're asking, is that you could try.
As attempt, as you have noted,
Correct.
there's dense shrub growth, which
Yep.
does obscure the trunks.
Yes,
The leaves are popping out, so
Yeah.
we will attempt and
Okay.
report back to the commission on our
That'd be
findings. But it is possible that few can be accurately measured. So we will make
okay. So if you could
An effort.
let Paul know
Yes.
when you're ready to send somebody out there. I think it might be helpful if we knew about that and if we were able to attend so we could watch. I just think that would be very educational because the vice chair and I went to the edge of the pool and just looked around and said, well, I don't see how any of these trees are reaching the obstruction zone. They at least appear to be well below it. So it would be very helpful, educational for us, and elucidating in terms of the findings that we will have to make in order to issue any kind of a order of conditions. So that would be hugely appreciated and important to us. And before we go to mitigation still, while we're still talking about the vernal pool, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we did receive the vernal pool assessment from Oxbow Associates. A copy of that report has been posted on MyTownGov, so anybody can find it and see it. And just to very briefly summarize what it says, it goes through the general characteristics of vernal pools, why they receive the highest level of protection in the Commonwealth, partly because they are essential habitat for breeding, egg deposition, and development for many amphibians and invertebrates who require vernal pools, because in any other body of water that contains fish, and critically vernal pools do not, those larvae and eggs are subject to predation by fish. So vernal pools are the only places where some of these species can spawn and get their life started. They did find spotted salamanders and fairy shrimp in there, and the spotted salamanders rang a couple bells. So I think that Paul, I'm not sure if he's done it yet. If not, he will do it quickly. Send the report from Oxbow over to Natural Heritage, who issued an earlier letter to see whether they can confirm or clarify that letter based on the actual, because there was no actual data at the time that they did this. When this vernal pool was certified, there was no on-site data. But now that there is, just to make sure that that conclusion that they reached, that there's no take, is confirmed. So we will get that done very quickly. In addition, the report from Oxbow contains some conditions that they encouraged us to put into any order of conditions. Most of these we've already talked about, and I think we've reached agreement on. One, I wanted to get your response to, such as hand tools only, there are time of year restrictions, which I don't know whether it's problematic. He said the active season is December to February. I don't know whether
I checked that with one of our wildlife biologists because the way it was written, I could not tell from the statement if it meant avoid December to February or work in December to February. I thought it was, there was a reasonable reason to read it either way. And so I did confirm it. I ran it by
and what'd they say?
A rare species person here, and she was saying that based on the spotted salamander's needs, it would be work December to February to avoid the rest of the year.
Because
and that would be aligned with the Cape Cod Commission's time of year restriction, which was mid-March through mid-May for immigration into the pond.
Right,
So,
and what we had talked about before about January or December to January start, so that the ground is frozen, leaves are gone, and it's before any of the activity in the pool gets going. So
correct, yep. So we think that we read that one in line with the time of year restriction we are already committed to.
Okay, thank you, because that rang a bunch of bells here. He also recommended on-site monitoring, which we've talked about, and I think we've got agreement on annual surveys and remonitoring reports. The one I wanted to ask you about is they are recommending that the trunks and the stems that are cut be left in place. I don't know how you feel, but we immediately thought that that would at least mitigate against the damage of dragging those things out of there. And if he said that because of the moisture that they would retain when they're in contact with the soil would be beneficial, that sounds okay to us too. So do you have a view on that?
We are not opposed to leaving those trees there within the 100 feet. There are recommendations within the GEIR that no trees should be left within 25 feet of the wetland boundary, and that if any trees are left, they should be bucked up into 2-foot-long segments to make brush piles that are no more than 4 feet tall. That being said, if the commission wants logs scattered with good ground contact and you want to leave full-length trunks and logs, we are not opposed to that. I just wanted to share with you the guidance that we typically follow
Okay, yeah.
for these projects.
We'll check that GEIR recommendation. Do you know offhand why, what the basis for that, for not leaving logs?
I'm not sure off the top of my head what the basis for that is. I do know that it is common to leave some brush piles as wildlife habitat within the buffer zone, but often the request is to remove the material
Excuse
per.
me, 1 second. When you say brush, we don't mean the branches. Brush to me is, I think.
Branches and trunk, right? If you're
Well, they
cutting
make wood, messy wood piles with the branches and trunks.
It says leave tree stems within aura, logs.
What is that?
And then
So we
in
can leave the
parentheses,
logs that the commission wants.
Okay, we will.
Not the branches, right?
We will take that under advisement, and we'll figure that out when we get to conditions and what we'll actually end up with. But I suspect some
the airport's
variation.
We are not tied to removing the material.
Okay.
That's typically the request of the commission. If you request logs to stay and brush to remove, we'll comply with that.
We'll look into it a little bit deeper and make sure that we land in the right place. But mechanized pulling them out is probably something that we don't want to do, so.
Right, if we could keep the machinery out of that area, I think it's all to the good.
Well, the recommendation at Oxbow was all hand cut.
Yeah, right. I just want to make sure that you were also not opposed to that part of their recommendation. Okay.
No, we've maintained
They've said that.
if you require hand cutting, our bid package will require hand cutting by the contractor.
Okay.
All right.
I thought that was an excellent recommendation on the consultant's part. I thought it was a fantastic idea.
Yeah, makes total sense. All right, so now that brings us to, once we're getting closer to narrowing in on exactly what needs to be compensated for, what the actual impact and loss is going to be, which gets us into the mitigation question. Thank you for what you sent in terms of the proposals. I know we had a couple of back and forths about the concept of making a payment or a donation in lieu of mitigation, and while at first blush that seemed attractive and feasible, the more people spent time thinking about it, the more uncomfortable some of us became with that. For a number of practical reasons, if it goes to another nonprofit, we don't really have any control over what they do, how they do it, how the funds are expended, without setting up some pretty complicated administrative processes, which don't seem to be called for. So that leaves us with two ideas. One is, I know that we've talked about and you've added to your list, expanding the area of invasive species management beyond the area strictly within our jurisdiction. I can tell you that generated a lot of interest and support, particularly in the areas that are adjacent to the jurisdiction, right immediately adjacent, if you think about a buffer strip around the buffer zone. Partly because once those trees are going to have their roots ground and removed, so that area is automatically more likely to have invasives move into it because of that. So expanding the management to include an area around there, it does a couple of things. It addresses the impact directly of the removal of the trees, and that's what mitigation is supposed to do. It's supposed to be a way of lessening the impact and or compensating for it. So I think that's something that we're very interested in and would like to put some flesh on that bone particularly and see what we can come to agreement on. We
are open to discussing that. We had previously brought that up, and my impression, both from listening to other hearings, you know, that were heard before ours in other meetings and from our discussion, was that was not accepted. The area was area and trees were trees. So I just
that
want to
argument,
confirm
yeah.
before we go down this road that is,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a,
ultimately that would be acceptable.
okay, yes, where we get into this question of area versus trees tends to happen with tree removal in protected zones. And what, are you compensating for the entire impacted area, or are you compensating for each individual tree, or both, or how does that work? And I think where we're going to end up here is some combination of trees plus area. So, and because of the susceptibility and the likelihood of invasives moving into the protected buffer zones, I think we are supportive of expanding that area. And we can talk about trees in just a moment in terms of planting, because there's another option that became available to us or is potentially available to us. So what we would ask for from you then is that if you could identify, using the plans you have, the areas that you would propose to expand the invasive management to, whether that's a strip around the jurisdictional area or whatever, it depends on the topography, I guess, and it depends on what's there and where it makes the most sense and it provides the best protection for the remaining buffer area to not be overrun with invasives. That would be
Yes,
something that would be important.
Draw up those areas. I think that the airport is interested in pursuing, you know, more about like an either this additional invasive species management or some other type of tree mitigation versus a combination, just given that they have just more administratively with how it gets funded, through the town and some through federal and state. So just being pretty clear on what combination of things. So can we talk, we can certainly mark up on the plans where additional area is, but can we talk about what this additional tree mitigation that might be available is? Because I'm not.
And it may not. So it so happens that at next week's town meeting here in Chatham, there is a proposed bylaw called a tree protection bylaw that will add a new layer of protection to all town-owned trees. It's a bit of an open question about whether, if it passes, it's immediately in effect, but I don't think it would have any impact on plans and applications that have already been filed. It's not going to apply retroactively, but one feature it does have is it establishes a tree replacement revolving fund, so that when the town pursues projects that require removal, or trees that are owned by the town are removed for disease purposes or safety purposes or whatever it is, that and mitigation on site is not an available option, that money is placed into the revolving fund to pay for the planting of trees on some other property. That got our attention as well, because in that case it's tree replacement. So that goes exactly right to the heart of the impact of the project. So we haven't gotten to the point of thinking about, how much that would be or how that would work, but it was in the course of reviewing the warrant for next week's town meeting that the idea became jumped up. So that's the other option. Maybe I'll open it up at this point to views of other commission members, because my voice is going, and I've said my piece about what they would like to see.
Well, I think I would prefer to see a combination of this, if the article passes next week, figuring out something monetarily to put into that fund, and also the invasive management. I just don't feel invasive management is enough, given the large number of trees that will be removed.
And when you say invasive management, just for clarity, you're talking about invasive management outside of the aura? Because
Yes.
we've committed to invasive
Yes.
management in the aura.
I
Okay,
know, I'm
great.
talking
Just
about
wanna
as
be clear.
mitigation, not
Okay.
not within the aura. Correct, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just find that the mitigation is gonna be hard to do. The area is so vast, you know, to try to manage where you left off the tree, there are plants that you planted. I just don't see that working.
Well, that's why the fund.
Right.
We wouldn't put there wouldn't be any placing of the trees, because that is impossible.
Right.
That's why we thought maybe that would come in handy.
Okay. Over here.
I agree with Karen. I'm not going to repeat, but I think the combination approach makes the most sense, and utilizing that fund would be a beautiful thing.
Well, it'd be some seed money, as it were.
Seed money,
Because
exactly.
the fund is established but
Yeah.
has no money in
Yeah,
it.
because it's about the trees.
Yeah.
As long as it passes next week.
Right, this is all premised on
Exactly,
whether it passes. Who
exactly.
knows? You never know what's going to happen at
Exactly.
town meeting.
We're not
I've been wrong
assuming.
before.
Well,
so-
we're not assuming.
No,
It's
we're not.
just, it has come up.
Yeah, I agree as well. A comment, the deficit in terms of the ecological impact of this project, I think, is almost, it necessitates a multiplicity of response, including invasive management and somehow compensating for the trees that are removed through a fund or something like that. But having said that, the devil is always in the details, as I tend to say, and that is that the invasive management plan that you come forward with for areas outside of our jurisdiction, you know, that can be a wide range of plans. So we'll need to see that, of course.
Of course. Yep.
Bob?
I agree. Combination of both would be nice. And if it's a lot of money, then maybe purchase some open space even. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, give you a chance to weigh in.
Is she here?
She's there, she's muted. Oh, maybe she's not. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, all right. When she gets back, she will weigh in. So,
She wrote a note, I think. Something came up.
okay. That's not giving you a whole lot of specificity to work with, but just something to think about. I do think there'll be some reasonable combination because both prongs of those directly balance out some of the impacts of this project, and so it makes sense from that standpoint. All right.
If this does not pass next week and there is not a tree
Right.
mitigation,
Right. Then we're
fund.
back to what we talked about before as well, you know, plant some trees on other town property, which is a much harder thing to figure out.
right, I think the airport is not opposed to purchasing the trees for planting on another property, but would seek to partner with the Conservation Commission on identifying
Sure.
Right.
what project
What
that
projects?
would be, and on sharing, you know, if they purchase the trees and or pay for the installation, that the Conservation Commission or other volunteer organizations would provide, you know, monitoring of those areas. So they would seek, I think, to partner with you on that type of project.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right, well, we'll know by Tuesday, Monday. Monday night, we'll know. So on Tuesday morning, we'll know, when you wake up, we'll know which way makes the most sense to pursue, because that would also work too. We'd be happy to work in partnership to identify parcels. We know that there are areas where some tree planting is needed, so that could possibly be worked on. So we'll wait and see on that.
Janet?
Okay.
Yes.
How about, I know there are other vernal pools in town.
Certified, one. There's only 2 certified, but there are
But I
others.
mean, I have one behind my house, but and a lot of those contain invasive plants. And, if there was money available, how about cleaning those areas up? I mean, they're very essential to the ecosystem in those areas. So I'd like to see money put towards, because even the one behind my house, they're invasives. There's Japanese knotweed that's taking over that whole area where the vernal pool is. So I'd like to see some money maybe used to manage those vernal pools in town. Thanks.
That's a good thought. Harder to figure out how to do that. Who's going to do the work? Who hires that person? Who oversees that? Who does the plan? But I'm on the same page that there are other vernal pool areas and other deep wetland depression areas that are terribly invaded.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll think about that too, depending on how it goes on Monday. All right. The last thing, go ahead. I'm sorry, there you are in your mitigation. I don't know what other slides you had. We kind of
Nope,
went off.
that's it. Those
Okay.
were our topics.
Okay. Yep.
So I can stop sharing, actually.
All right, we had one other, because I think Paul may have sent you our list of, I had polled the commissioners over the last couple of weeks and asked people to submit any questions that they still had at this point, as we move hopefully toward wrapping this up, and what was still outstanding. And the one question that came back is, in order to, if we were to write an order of conditions, and I'm not saying we are, because frankly, I have no idea how people are going to vote on this at this point, we do have to make a finding that this project is legally mandated because it is so intrusive and impactful in otherwise protected areas. I know we've had a lot of conversations about FAA mandates, but I'm wondering if you can point us to or give us a document that evidences that mandate, that shows that the airport is under a legal requirement to remove trees in the obstruction zone specifically, not as a general matter of FAA regulations, and they've been out of compliance for decades, which they have. But what is it about now that mandates that this project must be done despite the incredible impact it has on the environment? Is there?
I will ask Mark for that specific document, and we did provide a document from DOT saying that they looked at the areas and they certify it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Other FAA correspondence, I would ask Mark to
Yeah,
respond.
it's always been presented as an FAA mandate. So all we're asking for is something that evidences that mandate.
Yes, we can provide that to you.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, follow.
So as a follow-up to that question, I think a question is key in some people's minds. Is that mandate in response to an elective desire on the part of the airport? In other words, having to do with their desires that were laid out in the AMPRU to bring in, to implement the new technology for straight-in landing. I forget the acronym for it. So in other words, if there is a quote, mandate unquote, from the FAA or any other entity, is it mandatory under all conditions or under discretionary goals that the airport has? So just to say it is mandatory or not mandatory doesn't fully answer the question, I think, or mandated.
Yeah, for example, if it's a requirement of a grant application, for example, and not a legal requirement on its own.
Right.
We just need to make
So,
that finding,
just-
and no offense to, to you guys or anybody on the airport commission, but making that finding requires that we have some kind of underlying evidence. The applicant has the burden of meeting all the various elements of this. So Given the contentiousness of this project in this town, we're not inclined just to take people's word for something. We need to see documents that establish the fact before we can make a finding.
We can provide you with those documents.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful. All right. So, I have 3 things on my list to wrap up this last portion. I'm hoping that we get this wrapped up at one more hearing, and then our plan is to have a hearing that prepares us to go forward with an order of conditions or a denial, depending upon where the votes land. And at that final hearing, I would have each person provide a statement as to whether they support a order of conditions or a denial, so that we can get working on one or the other. But I have here that you will try to see what you can do about getting a number of the trees in the immediate vicinity of the vernal pool that are going to have to be taken down. You will put some flesh on the bones of a mitigation plan that is aimed at expanding the invasive management area so that it covers some, I'm going to leave it to you, in your professional opinion, the areas of the, in the buffer zone that are most susceptible to have problems with invasives, where maybe they're close in on the other side, where it makes sense, and not just like a ribbon of 30 feet around the entire thing, which is not necessarily sensible. And then the document establishing the legal mandate. Anything else that No. That's great. We're getting there. We're almost there. So we, in terms of scheduling, I don't know how long it's going to take you to get those 3 pieces to us. We have, our next scheduled hearing is the 22nd of May, and I got to tell you, that agenda is full. It got totally filled up. We have an available date of next Wednesday, where there is no hearing scheduled. And we have a further date of Wednesday, the 29th of May, that similarly has no hearing scheduled. So there would not be, you would not be running into scheduling problems with a full agenda. All these people sitting here today waiting for their straightforward matters wouldn't have to be put through what we keep putting them through. We'd have it just for you guys, and just to kind of work our way through these last issues and get to a point where, to a decision point, which is what we're driving toward by the end of the month. So what are your thoughts on those options?
I would suggest the 29th.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Just based on timing, and
It's going to take a while, yeah, I know. I figured 1 week is not going to be enough to do
no,
that.
especially not if a decision's being made about trees on Monday night. So
Right, well, we'll
the
get,
29th,
Paul will be in touch with you immediately on Tuesday with that decision.
Okay.
Yeah, the 29th, we could probably do it all at one time in one hearing, maybe, given that there's only 3 issues and they're not that complex. We might be able to resolve those 3 and then move straight into deliberations and to the decision vote. Yeah, 1 o'clock on the 29th, is that, this room's available, everybody here is available. Does that work for you? You're the only ones we hadn't gotten a hold of.
Mark, does that work
Yeah, the
for
29th at
you?
1. Yep, the 29th at 1 p.m. works for me.
Okay. Yep, that works for me as well.
That is great. What luck. I can't believe it. It works for everybody. That's unheard of.
Ugh.
All right, we will plan that and reconvene on the 29th of May, and hopefully resolve all of this and be ready to go.
Take a 5-minute break.
Hmm?
We take a 5-minute break.
We are absolutely taking a break because my water bottle is empty, but we need to vote to continue.
What do we, Mike's here.
Oh, I'm sorry, because this is what it is. There are people in the audience, and I'm sure online, who would like to say something. Anybody in the room? Do you want to say anything, Mike? He already submitted That's in the record, I already put that in. Okay. Anybody on the platform?
Oh, I can't believe it.
Everybody spoke their
Wow.
piece last night.
Phew.
Everybody's tired from last night.
Phew. I'm glad.
Okay, that's great. So let's do a motion to continue this to the 29th.
I move that we continue Chatham Municipal Airport to the meeting on April 29th, 2024.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. See you back here on the 29th. Thank you so much.
See you then. Thank you.
All right. With that, we're taking a 5-minute break. We will reconvene at 2:45. It's a 7-minute break. All right, we are back. Thank you for the break. Paul, are you back? We're here just to.
Yes,
All
I
right,
am.
we are ready to move on to the next notice of intent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next notice of intent is 70 Meadowview Road South. Kyle and Patricia Lissack, map 100, parcel 16S15, DEP number SE10 3668. The project is proposed addition, attached garage, and proposed deck reconstruction, including mitigation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well,
For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. And also, I keep hearing you mention so few vernal pools. I count 13 on the maps.
In
13
Chatham?
certified vernal pools in Chatham.
They're all, two certified, right? Isn't that what I?
No,
No.
No, they're
13
not certified.
vernal pools.
no,
Wow,
Well, we have
Sorry.
two that are.
didn't know. Okay, good to know. All right.
we'll come see you, Thad, because that's like new information to us, but 2 is all we know of, certified.
Okay.
Yep.
We need to
Well, I
update our
can-
map, and you're the guy to help
Provide
us.
you with the locations based on NHESB. So at any rate, we're back. We were going to be here last week, but you had a full agenda, so we continued our last meeting. And then you didn't have quite so full of an agenda. So here we are. There were a couple of outstanding questions, a little bit more information about the trees. We looked at those in better detail. And one more tree should go just because it's awful close to the addition. We've added 2 additional trees to make up for that down in the mitigation area. We've added a little bit of notation regarding the lower lawn, what has traditionally been used for trailer parking and just minor uses. Sometimes the association docks have been stored here. The boat that everybody has seen down there, that was on a neighboring property. But the applicant would like to store his boat down here during construction. But otherwise, he has no plans to store it there long-term, just when he needs the space up above. We've provided the final area calculations, and just to share, there was one minor change in the plan. There was a porch that was filled in the front yard. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? There's a what in the front yard? Porch.
There was a little.
I thought you said horse. I was.
There was a little porch, and
Okay.
a porch that was added, so the front of the building is now a straight face instead of kicking in a little bit. So the building coverage did increase. The overall coverage did not increase because it was going to be patio area anyhow. The area calculations come up with a 1940 required mitigation. We're providing over 2,000 square feet with the 1-to-1 and 2-to-1 for the tree replacement.
Okay.
Any questions?
All right, questions while I'm writing all this down. Start over here, Elise. Okay.
I don't have it at this moment.
Okey-doke.
I have a few. Did we ever, Thad, talk about the percentage of the outer R that will be covered? Because I don't have that in my notes. And when I look at the site map, it looks like it could be over our new figure from a year ago.
We may have missed that one. Let's see here. We have 26.7 plus 12.2 plus 1.5. So we're at 40%. We missed that.
What's our number?
Variance, 35.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah. 40%, okay, good. So that would normally call for a discussion for a variance because the number that we have now is 35%. So it's good to get that
Yes.
straight. Yeah, okay.
Or you could shrink it to below 35
Or you could just
and save
simplify it by
yourself the
shrinking.
trouble of going for a variance.
The second question is, still with 2 rinse stations on this property?
We had 2 rinse stations to begin with, one that was after the fact. They would like to have a rinse station closer to the path, so we've relocated that to be beside the HVAC, and that's going to be in the 50 to 100.
Do you see it? Because I'm,
Over here?
It's,
Here, this
No.
one, yeah. Rinse
this
station
is
here.
the new one.
Right, and then there's one over on
And
this
then
side.
there's one
Yep.
right here.
And why are, so the one on the on the left, on the, I guess it's the western side, is the existing, the pre-existing or existing?
No, the
HVAC?
pre-existing we've taken off the plans, and hang on, I'll
Oh,
They're both
share
proposed,
this screen.
okay, all right.
and they're both in the outer.
All righty. So there is an existing rinse station that's down here. That will be removed. And then we have a proposed rinse station next to one addition, and then another proposed rinse station that's on the other side. They come up from the boat and they want to be able to go to a rinse station. They come in from the beach and they want to be able to go to a rinse station. So it's inconvenient the way that the site is configured for them to be able to have one rinse station for all their purposes.
okay. Well, I'll just go on record as saying we have turned down projects where there were 2 proposed rinse stations. And I had the same attitude about it now. The third question I had was has to do with the mitigation area down below, down in the parking area.
Yes.
You have now 9 oak trees proposed there, I think. And if that is true, and then you have a lot of shrubs underneath those oak trees, but I'm going to defer to my colleagues on the far left up here to opine as to whether or not anything after a period of time will be able to live under 9 oak trees. Seems to me that'd be very dense shade under there. And anyway, that was the thought that occurred to me. Those are my questions.
Okay. And I'll look
So I
down.
will say for the mitigation, we are mimicking the heavily wooded conservation area that's located to the south, where we have the arrowwood and the high bush blueberry and all the other plants. The oak trees, of course, are going to be a little smaller as they go in, and then as they grow, just everything will naturalize out. So
Yeah,
if they're
yeah.
not happy, they won't survive, and if they're happy, then we're all happy.
What if they don't? I guess from your perspective, it's still the same area of mitigation?
Correct.
Okay. But it doesn't
If we
achieve.
proposed fewer plants now, it wouldn't be as full. And if the oak trees, as they grow, if they take over the area, then it's going to naturalize the way that, to a balance that it should be.
In theory, I don't know in practice how it'll turn out, but all I know is that is to say that only the oak trees live, or predominantly the oak trees, that the intended diversity of the mitigation area would not be achieved. So anyway, I'll let others opine on that.
All right, thanks, Bob. You guys have a view about the location of those oak trees and the other mitigation plants?
I have a question on the mitigation. Thad, on the mitigation, it's kind of odd on the mitigation to me, on the west side of the property. Normally, wouldn't you see the mitigation at the top of the bank, kind of joining close to the other part of the mitigation? To be in top of bank and on the west side of the house like that?
Oh.
Are they trying to
we
get
don't
lawn
count
space,
any
or are they trying to get lawn space? Is that the idea? I mean, it's pretty much a pretty steep hill. You're not gonna play croquet there. But you would think the mitigation would be pulled south, so it would be on the top of the bank.
So the mitigation area that we're proposing is down below.
Oh, so that,
taking
those
out
have
about a
nothing, so
third.
those have nothing to do with mitigation next to the house?
This is it.
Oh, so
Right,
this
they
is,
wanted
this is
some
just household
buffering.
That's
plantings?
existing.
Oh, okay, see, I'm sorry, I was,
No, that's,
You could, okay, on the bottom, below that, go down further.
yeah, this is the mitigation
That's
for
it.
the job, okay, all right, I got you.
Yep.
That's it.
But what about my question?
Oh, you mean as far as the oaks,
9 oaks and all those plants.
do you,
Good idea, bad
I mean, do you have to put the oaks in?
Well, yeah,
Well, if you don't want the other plants to die, I mean, you gotta make a choice,
Well,
right?
that's my question. So you think it's one or the other? Okay.
Yeah, I would be one or the other. Either have a low plant community or have a tree community. Yeah, the plants will die under the tree over time. I don't know if we'll live to see it, but they will. So either have a lower plant community or have a few trees and the plants underneath die of shade after a while. Yes.
What about naturalized woodlands that have a mixture of canopy trees and?
Usually they're under pine trees, because pines they'll let sun filter through.
Unlike oaks, which are much denser.
Yes.
But I would see if there were, let's say, just 2 oak trees there.
Yeah.
There's some chance
Yeah,
that
on the edges,
the
maybe.
shrubbery would, the shrubs would live.
On the edges.
9 oak trees, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Bob?
In time, yeah.
Well, I was gonna comment on that area of mitigation down on the lower field. It's kind of like a forgotten child, because it's down there, and after 3 years or what have you, I think, I don't know if it's ever gonna be maintained after that. And I was wondering if you had any other areas where you could maybe spread the wealth and move some of those plants out of there and plant some other areas that,
And it makes the most sense to go after the field.
why is that?
That's in, as close to the resource areas. We're within the buffer to salt marsh. We're in the floodplain and subject to coastal flowage. I mean, from your regulations, we should really be looking as close to the resource area, naturalizing it first. This is also adjacent to the town of Chatham, the farm that we purchased that is all woodland. I mean, we can certainly thin out the shrubs that are going in.
Bob, what
Yeah.
was your opinion on 9 oaks?
Well, yeah, I mean, if some of those lower plants are shade tolerant, I'd have to go through the list, but, they may grow underneath, some of them may grow underneath those shade trees, those oaks, but I'm not sure.
No, yeah, nothing's gonna survive under the oaks, after a
In
while,
time,
but
yeah.
they'll survive for a while.
Oh, and the oaks
And
that are
as
going
you,
in
and
are
as you
gonna
said
be
that,
all
I do agree in a way, if after the oaks are mature, then things will go natural as it was intended to go natural. You could look at it that way also, so.
I mean, I know we like oaks, and I'm wondering if we can bring some of those oaks maybe in some other to other places.
Well, I don't think they wanna obstruct the view, or,
Ding, ding, ding.
Well, I guess the problem you have that, or your applicant, is that you're removing X number of trees. We have a tree replacement ratio, and that's the only place you can put them. But it doesn't seem to be an effective place to pack them in like that. It's not a design mitigation area. It is a, let's put all the trees there mitigation.
Well, we can certainly open that up a little bit and increase the square footage and push the shrubs out so that they have more light, and then
Or how about if you brought some of the shrubs up above on top of bank.
They do have some.
Certainly bring that up to my client, but
You know
I'm
that,
thinking
so,
that they want to maintain the lawn that exists there.
right. Well, you know, it's a lot of area between the 50 and the 100.
But we're in the zero here. I mean, we're in the resource area where we're proposing the mitigation. If we wanted to remove a tree here, we'd be looking at 3-1. If we wanted to remove a tree in the 0 to 50, we're looking at 2-1. So obviously there's a higher value
Right.
where we're placing the mitigation.
Why are those areas with plantings, the foundation plants, why are those not mitigation areas?
Able to maintain those over time, so we specifically called them as landscape areas, even though they are all native plants. And we have native ferns, blueberries.
But there's no technical reason why they could not be demarcated as mitigation area, just like the area down below.
And if they were considered as mitigation, then they couldn't prune them in the future. So if their view starts getting cut off by high bush blueberry, I mean, they'd want to plant something else there so it wouldn't block the view.
Well, there are low-growing native plants.
Oh, absolutely. But they wanted to put some high bush in there, but then be able to maintain them as landscaping rather than as
Mulch
mitigation.
beds, things like that.
Okay, wait.
Not naturalizing.
I guess you've got a problem. Then I guess you can just go back and see what the options are. But I don't see that mitigation area down below as it doesn't provide I just don't think of it as mitigation. I think it's a sort of it'll eventually be a little tree farm.
I mean, this plan does not show where everything around here is already woodland.
Well, that may be true, but we're just talking about what's inside this property.
You got the,
I mean, all the way around here is already woods.
Thad, on top of the bank, you got 1 inch equals 20 feet. I mean, you could put a lot of mitigation, even 10 feet on top of bank, on the other side of the entrance of the stairway going down, and use up a lot of mitigation there, just 10 feet. And then wrap up to your planting on the west side of the foundation. You can get rid of a lot of the mitigation plants from below, and it wouldn't hurt I don't think it would matter.
I find it amazing that if we were trying to develop what's below, we would have so much opposition from you. And now you're telling me that you'd rather have lesser mitigation.
No, it's about the 9 trees.
It's just that it's overly concentrated in one small
Yeah.
area so that they're likely to be a high mortality rate over time, which defeats the purpose. So all we're looking for are ways to maybe spread that out and thin that out a bit, not lose the plants, but spread them a bit more so that they're not.
And I think that my client would be more inclined to increase the mitigation area below by pulling some of these plants out and
That would be
taking away
fine
more of the
too.
lawn.
You can, no, spread those out in that area a bit more. Would be perfectly fine.
Because you've got to remember,
on the bank.
there's a regulation that says that the mitigation area must be maintained in perpetuity. And so by maintain, that means that the plants should, it should.
Both naturalize and be maintained.
Yeah, so if everything underneath the trees dies, is that maintained? I don't see it as maintained.
Yeah, oak trees are the worst hogging out sunlight, hogging the sunlight to the ground. So,
Ironically, and I see Teresa sitting in the audience, and I'm always complaining about the number of shad bushes that she puts in, but this is actually a place where maybe shad bushes might be appropriate because they don't shade what's underneath them as much.
She got a little worried.
This is the one case.
I got another question,
And
Janet.
certainly
Go ahead.
add a couple of.
Yeah, that would help.
Thad, at the end of the Shell Drive, to the eastmost portion of it, I think there's an oak right on the edge there, and you want to remove it? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
There's one pine tree that we have.
One pine, yeah.
I saw that.
Yes.
Now, does it?
And we're gonna put a curbing in.
Can you reduce that driveway so it doesn't impact that tree? Can you stop that driveway like 5 feet or so, 4 feet before that tree?
I mean, it's a terrible driveway to begin with. The garage facing out to the side and coming around is going to be a difficult, it's going to be easy for a smart car, but for an SUV, that'll be a tough turn. But I can certainly bring that up to the client, and if he's willing to reduce that further
Okay,
to save one tree out of a number of pine trees that we are saving.
yeah, well, any tree that you can save would be a help. And the other thing I saw out there was by the generator and the retaining wall on that end over there.
Yes.
It looks like you're gonna have to cut back and remove some trees in there. It seemed like it was very, very tight in there where those would be installed.
We'll look at that again.
That's all I had,
I'm
thank you.
sorry, Bob, I was writing the last thing down. What was that last one? So I don't.
The generator.
The generator and the retaining wall. We're up against some trees, and I think some more trees will have to be removed.
We always run into that difficulty with generators where they have to meet the setback. It limits the locations that those can go.
Okay. And where did we leave off with the 40, the 35%? What did we agree on that?
He's at 40% at the
Yeah.
moment, so he either has to reduce 5% or submit a variance.
So, that leads into what I was going to bring up. One of the two things, and you have an awful lot of driveway because you've added this whole driveway in front of the house. I mean, and what if you didn't do that great big circle? Then you might be under your 40.
So only this part of the circle is within jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
not
even if we
much.
took that out, it wouldn't,
Yeah.
it wouldn't bring us under 40 terribly. I mean, that would be,
True. I
it wouldn't
guess.
bring us to 35.
Shoot, okay. But still, I'd like to address the driveway. And I know it's not a lot in our jurisdiction, but it just seems excessive. And, I mean, with the big bump out, which if you pulled that in a little bit, and I know why they needed to go out so that they can get in the garage, but if you pulled that back a bit and you didn't do quite so much circle, and maybe the circle wasn't in our jurisdiction, then maybe you'd get down at least closer to 35.
Okay.
And then my other thing is, I really don't support 2 rinse stations. And if they want to have the one that's right near the HVAC, and I understand why, because it's nearer to the steps and everything, then why can't they get rid of the other that's at the proposed addition? I don't see, you've explained why they need the one closer, you know, that you've moved back but is closer to the steps. But it seems if you have that, why do you need another one?
Okay.
So those are my things.
In case your feet get sandy running from one to the next.
Well, going through the house, through that sand in the house.
Anything else? So we know you have ZBA not until the end of June, correct?
Correct.
So you have some time. So I've written down 5 things. Reduce the number of oaks, replace some with shad bush, spread out the plantings, whatever you do, needs to be done to reduce the tightness of that planting plan there. Try to reduce the driveway to save that one tree, which would allow you to lose one of the other trees. Just pointing that out. The generator in the retaining wall, Karen, what was the?
It was,
Is
that
there
was
another
Bob,
tree in
but it was, I
Close.
think, Bob thinks that some trees will need to come out possibly because of the location.
Take a look at that, yeah. Decide on, you need to submit a variance if you're going to be over 35%. And drop that excess rinse station on the far side that isn't next to any walkway or anything.
For what it's worth, we have requested a variance already because work is going on within the 50, so at least we're partway there.
Only, oh yeah, I do see that part of that, yep. We'll just have to reference the, well, but it's a slightly different analysis.
Oh, it is.
And alternatives of size and scope rather than location. So we can continue this. We talked about June 5th.
Right.
Which is actually the next available date, believe it or not. And then we'll check in with you, we'll go through that list, and then we'll hold off and wait until after ZBA before finalizing
Absolutely.
in order. All right, we have a motion to continue to June 5th.
I move that we continue 70 Meadowview Road South to the meeting on June 5th.
Gordon, second?
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, see you back here then, thank you. All right, Paul, who's next?
Next on the agenda is 46 Shore Road, 46 Shore Road LLC, map 16F, parcel A7, DEP number SE103678. The project is a proposed elevated staircase over a coastal bank to a beach.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. I've just run through my supply of no-dos, though, so we got to finish up. So this is staircase over a bank. We were here a couple of weeks ago. We've done a redesign of the staircase. If somebody would put this design up on
Do you have it, Bob? Oh, sorry. Or Susan? Who wants to, one of you, whoever gets there first.
If Bob can do it, that'd be great.
Plan package, revised plan package. There it is. No, it's revised plan package, this one here. And then there's I'm not on the platform. And then there's a large, yeah, then there's the mitigation
Should read the
plan.
sheet after the site plan.
Is the mitigation.
Yeah.
This one, May 1st revised,
Yeah, the new stair plan.
Yeah, it's on the.
revised conservation package, there you go.
You got
The updated.
You
Yep.
got it?
Yep,
That's
that's it.
it.
All right,
Okay.
we got there.
All right,
All
so the last time we were here, the principal concern about the staircase was the fact that it finished well out from the toe of the bank. So we have a redesign of it that brings it so it finishes at the toe of the bank, and the bottom section will be removable or be capable of being lifted up in the event of a storm event. And the rest of the show belongs to Teresa.
Except that I think they also, is this the one, they removed the horizontal landings?
No.
No?
That's not all.
Is that another, that's 500? Okay. There are so many
Yeah, there's
coastal
3
bank
of them.
stairways. This is what our theme this week is, so.
Well, I know,
But it did catch my attention. You've got a run of 86 feet.
well, that's it, so you need someplace to rest.
Well, but is that feasible, what you're showing there of 86 feet run with no landing in there?
Well, there's a landing where the little 2 X's are.
No, those are trees coming out.
Oh, I know the X's for trees coming out.
Oh, no, the 86
There
feet I
is-
meased after that.
Yeah,
Oh, I know,
the
that's,
bottom.
Just saying that,
well, I'm not gonna,
I'm not walking up those stairs, so
well,
it
I'm not
doesn't
gonna be
bother
living
me.
there either, so.
It's time to hand it over to Teresa now.
It does say there's a 4x4 landing, but there's a note saying there's a 4x4 landing about halfway down that step. We took the design for the stairs directly from the engineer's plan.
Oh, I see, pointing right there. So
Right.
even though it looks like a step, there's a 4x4
It's a
landing.
4x4 landing.
Got it,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Oh, this little one?
Yeah, and
I
I
see
mean,
it.
we took,
Oh,
our
yeah,
plan is
yeah,
showing the
that.
stairs as designed by the engineer. We
Yeah.
took their CAD file and dropped it into our plan, so it should be reading the same as the engineering plan, including the notes.
Yep, grateful to see them both combined. Thank you for that. Makes it
Okay.
much better.
Yes, so I think at the last hearing, 2 questions came up. One was asking us to include what had been previously approved as mitigation restoration at the top of the coastal bank for the house reconstruction. So we've added that, shaded it in a slightly different color so that you can see how the two blend together. I did also go out and locate 2 trees that will need to be removed based on the center line of the stairway. One is a pitch pine and one is a scrub oak. And those have been flagged in the field, marked approximate locations on the plan for the commission's consideration. The other question that was asked was regarding the invasive white poplar on the bank. So I did go out and flag those white poplar as well. I flagged 15 trees, and I'm calling them trees, but they are between 3-inch and 5-inch diameter breast height, so they are very small trees. But because they're over 3-inch, and 3-inch and less is considered a sapling, 3-inch above is considered a tree, I flagged them. They're mainly clustered in the south, on the southern corner, the southwest portion of the area shown in green. There are a few scattered in other locations, but the 15 that I flagged are mainly in that southern corner. And so what we have done is added some more amelanchier in there, also known as serviceberry, which are trees. And there are 2 existing located on the bank. But in addition to that, I flagged 23, I did not flag, I counted 23 oak trees. Most of them are in a multi-stem form. It is clear that the trees on this bank had been cut previously. And I know the owners that had been there prior to the current owners had been planting more trees to provide screening, spruce trees in particular. At some point in time over the decades, these trees had been flush cut. They're multi-stem oak, multi-stem cherry, 23 oaks, most of them multi-stem. There are a couple of single-stem canopy-sized oak trees, and then several scrub oak, which kind of grow in that more of a shrubby form. But the rest of them are coppiced and multi-stemmed. 5 cherry trees that are also clusters. They're multi-stem trees, so they've clearly been flush cut at some point. 4 pitch pine, mainly located on the northern corner. That's outside of the 4 pitch pine, in addition to the one that I flagged that will have to be removed for the stairway. And 2 amelanchier clump form of serviceberry. So there's a significant number of there's far more native trees located on the bank than the 15 white poplars, 3 to 5-inch diameter white poplars. And in addition to that, we're proposing 6 additional serviceberry and 4 additional scrub oak on the bank, as well as the American hazelnut, the beach plum, the fragrant sumac, and the northern bayberry. So I think what we're providing on the bank by way of native vegetation, again, there was a little bit of shrub honeysuckle in that southern corner, very little vine material. There's a significant cluster of bayberry and beach plum shown in the darker green on our plan. Once you get down to that portion, the bank drops very steeply, so it's very difficult to access that bayberry beach plum area. from the top. There is a little bit of a gully on the southern side between this property and the property just to the south. And that's where that white poplar is located. And then clearly the trees to the property on the south have been pruned in the past as well for vista management. So it gets a little bit more invaded in that area where there's clearly been more disturbance on the southern side. And we're really planting that very heavily with bayberry, beach plum, amelanchier, and scrub oak in that area. But to the north of that, it's a really healthy plant community. I did note, did go out and count the stumps, and if you go out to the site, you'll see that we actually numbered them and lettered them in the areas where we did the previous management. The white poplar trees that we counted and the stumps that we counted are the same diameter as what we're seeing. So in that 3-inch diameter range, most of the stumps are smaller than my foot, and I have some photographs of my foot next to the stumps. There are a couple of larger stumps of oak that were multi-stemmed and they're completely rotted out. So if you look at the stumps, you'll notice that they're slightly larger, but it's completely rotted. And that's because of the poor connections from the previous cutting. They grow back, they regenerate, the connections aren't healthy, water gets in, sits in them, and it just sits and rots them. So those were removed. So we noted two rotted oak stumps that were cut, and then we counted 3 cherry stumps, and 2 of those were completely rotted, and 1 was less than 3-inch diameter. So the rest were the white poplar that were the invasive. There is a number of suckering white poplar in there, so they're like whip size, just coming up and suckering that we're going to be managing and treating. But the entire area is going to be completely restored. So I think having the previous mitigation shows the commission that from the edge of the lawn down to the bottom of the coastal bank will be fully vegetated.
Thank you. So all of that you just ran through in terms of the native trees that are still on the bank, are they inventoried somewhere? Is there a listing?
I literally just went out and inventoried them
Okay.
yesterday. I can give
Okay.
you a count and
Okay.
an inventory, a separate sheet of
Great,
that.
thank you, because I was going to
Yes.
say I don't see them. And they're all remaining, or is that?
They are all remaining.
Okay.
Yes, all of the native vegetation, with the exception of the 2 that we flagged and that we're showing with the red X for the stair
Yep.
construction, are remaining intact.
Okay,
Yes.
yes. Okay, questions?
I'm
Go ahead.
confused about something. I'm looking at your plant list, your planting schedule for this new plan. Well, first of all, so it shows 6 serviceberry. Are serviceberry understory trees? Can I get you to?
Yes,
to
I would
agree
call
to
them an
that?
understory tree.
Okay.
I would agree 100%, yes.
Does
they are
that
an
mean that they
understory tree.
can replace an overstory tree?
Well, I would say that they play very well with canopy trees like oak, pitch pines that you'll find. And actually, this is a fabulous time of year to see them because they're blooming. And while nothing else is leafed out, and you
yeah.
drive around and you can see
They're very
those-
pretty, yeah.
They're beautiful, but they're very easy to see because once they're done flowering, they sort of disappear into the rest of the canopy. But you see them in thick oak, pitch pine plant
They play great
communities.
with overstory trees.
Yes.
Well, my question is, can we consider them to be a one-for-one replacement with an overstory tree?
As far as the wildlife habitat.
Depends on your
value,
point of view.
Well, I'm
I would say regarding wildlife habitat value, they provide a significant amount of wildlife habitat value. Are they going to provide the same kind of wildlife habitat value as an oak tree where maybe you're going to get perching osprey, or especially on a coastal bank situation, or hawks? Hawks and osprey are not going to perch in amelanchiers. That is 100% true. So that will not happen. But do they provide habitat, equal habitat? I think so.
equal, okay.
I think they provide a significant root system. I think they just provide a different form of habitat.
I heard a chuckle down at the other end, so I'll let them handle that one.
Would I
Okay.
say we should cut down all the oak trees and plant only amelanchier? Never. I would never say that.
Well, good.
no.
Good. So anyway, but that's a side topic for what I'm actually trying to get out here, and that is you're saying you're planting 10 trees. I went back And that is, so this is a combined plan, you're planting 10 trees, but with the previous plan, which I will bring up the planting schedule for that, I just want to make sure I understand what you're presenting. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the plan, but in that plan, you see that you were planting 10 serviceberry, 3
Pitch pines.
3 pitch pines and 2 oaks. So, but was that plan only for the trees being removed on the upper part?
That's correct.
And so
Yes, that's a completely separate notice of intent.
Right, but so I guess my point is that just looking at this plan, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that these plants in this planting schedule
Are
have
only-
nothing to do with the plants that you're identifying as trees that you're identifying as being removed in this combined plan. So it's a little confusing.
So I think the reason that we shaded it in pink is because the area that's already under management and has been approved is a completely separate NOI. So we didn't include a plant schedule, it's just visually, so you could see how the two come together.
Right, so I would suggest just noting the planning schedule, say these only refer to the lower area, or whatever, however you want to phrase it.
Okay.
Because if this becomes a plan of record, someone might look at it and say, well, oh, for this entire mitigation area, they're only planting these trees.
Okay.
Well, it's noted.
It's noted,
It's
yeah.
footnoted.
Maybe you should add the SE.
Yeah, add the SE number to that, to make it clear.
Okay, we can do that, sure.
Yeah, because
To
they'll be
make
done
that
under
clear.
2 different certificates of compliance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can add that SE number along
think
with the
that
plan
would
note that
help.
shows
That
the
would-
planting and
that would-
mitigation plan
that would help,
approved.
just
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right,
Okay,
If I
go ahead.
piggyback on that, you say there are 10 native trees in various sizes, and then 142 native shrubs and wildflowers, but there's actually 141. Why did you removed one northern bayberry, and you made it 33 instead of 34, so I don't know
Sounds
which-
like we removed one bayberry and didn't make the change on the
Yeah,
plan note.
I didn't know which was the
No,
correct.
the correct is what's showing in the planting schedule.
Okay.
So it seems that maybe there was just an update in the plan note that didn't get made
Okay,
or didn't carry over.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
The question I had on the 7-gallon, what's the size? Don't they give you a size? Is it 2 to 3, 3 to 4?
It's usually 3 to 4 for a 7-gallon size. And the other part of this is, if you've been out there, it is very steep. And so planting.
Right, you can't drive.
Yeah, we can't get B&Bs
Right.
down there. Yeah.
That's all I have.
On the removable section, that's going to be stored where? Off-season?
The current plan is that it'll be slightly narrower than the rest of the staircase. It'll either be hinged up, so it's laying against the upper stairs, or pulled up into the upper stairs.
So it's going to be somewhat temporarily attached to the staircase then?
Right, it's gonna rest on the staircase, whether it's on a hinge or whether we pull it up and fasten it there.
Okay. And Teresa, underneath the stairs, I always ask this question, but that's going to be blanketed with seed as well?
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
As far as removal on this site, on this portion of the bank, I don't think we're going to need to blanket the rest of the bank because the canopy trees are still intact. Obviously, any disturbance that gets made, and I'm not sure what kind of posts are being proposed for the installation of the stairs, but it should be minimal amount of excavation or anything that's going to happen in this area. Trees should be flush cut, stumps remained in place, winch them out, and then the footings, whether they're helicals or diamond pairs, should be able to be installed, and then no other disturbance in the area.
Well, the construction plan shows that they'll be driven 10 feet into the ground. I mean, I don't know that
Helical.
that's all
They're helicals?
They're helical.
Helicals are being
Yeah.
proposed, so yes, so that should be minimal disturbance required for the stair installation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Nobody opined about, does a understory tree replace an overstory tree? Come on, guys.
Well, not really.
Depends on the kind of story they're telling.
It does depend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On the conditions.
What is the maximum height on a service, Barry?
20, 25 feet. The ones that are out there are probably 15 feet. You know, in an exposed site like this,
Yeah.
on the northern side, it's
on that.
really interesting because if you're out there looking, on the northern side of the property, there's a beautiful stand of pitch pine mixed with amelanchier, but it's right in front of Turn Island, so I don't know if it's a little more protected from the wind.
Right, I think those would be a good choice because of the wind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. There's one canopy-sized oak tree on the property just to the south, and it's really beat up. It's probably not long for this planet, but it's like the one surviving canopy oak tree on this bank. That's truly what I would call a canopy tree, meaning it's, you know, over 25 feet tall.
Surprised it got that far.
I'm surprised it got that far as well, and it appears to have, you know, it's showing its age and its exposure, like probably all of us.
All right, so do anybody need anything else? The only thing I have here is that you'll send us the,
Yes, I'll send you a separate
updated.
sheet with yes, I have
I
my
think
little scribble
otherwise we're ready
notes.
to go. You have ZBA on the 30th,
That's correct.
so we'll schedule this for the order on June 5th, and we'll watch to make sure that there's nothing changing that's coming out of ZBA.
Right.
Shouldn't be,
Yeah,
but
thank you
never
very
know.
much.
All right,
Okay, thanks.
All right,
motion.
Yeah.
yeah? What was that?
I don't know. Does somebody online want to say something? No?
No.
Okay.
All right. I move that we continue 486 Shore Road to the meeting on June 5th for an order of conditions.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. We'll see you back here June 5th.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, everybody. All right, Paul, what's next?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Next on the agenda is 30 Sears Point Lane, McClay Family Property LLC, map 11A1, parcel 6-4, DEP number SE 103677. The project is proposed waterfront maintenance. The applicant has requested a continuance till May 22nd, 2024.
Yay.
I move that we continue 30 Sears Point Lane to the meeting on May 22nd, 2024.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
I vote aye, all right. All right, Paul?
Next on the agenda, 26 Salt Pond Road, 26 Salt Pond Road LLC, map 17J, parcel 9-1, DEP number SE 103675. Extension of an existing stone revetment. Applicants requested a continuance till May 22nd, 2024.
I move that we continue 26 Salt Pond Road to the meeting on May 22nd, 2024.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That one's also continued. All right, Paul, can we continue everything?
Next on the
Keep
agenda,
going.
98 Oyster.
This is
98
going
Oyster-
really well.
Yes, I can read really fast. 98 Oyster Pond Furlong, Stephen A. and Haley G. Nadas, map 13E, parcel 2911-A, DEP number SE 103682, project construction of a shore access catwalk.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Bob Perry with Cape Cod Engineering, representing the Natus family. It's actually two Natus families here, 98 and 100, and this is the 98 Oyster Pond Furlong. I'll probably mention 100 as we go into this, and I did bring a plan so I can refer to it. So if you've been there, we have I guess I would call it the easternmost house, which has an in-ground set of steps that approaches from the lawn area to the top of the coastal bank, begins to go down, that it encounters the defined top of the coastal bank, and it continues on down, where it finds a slightly gentler sloped area. It's fairly well established. I don't have a date on it, but those are in-ground steps. They appear stable. There's a plank bulkhead down there that must have been installed 30 or something years ago. It's working, but it's in relatively poor condition. But again, I don't have a date on it. It's apparent from my site visits and speaking with the owners that they've been using this pathway to get to the oyster pond, and there's a, for lack of a better word, a Moby mat that was laid down in the salt marsh, and I don't think it's been removed. They called us up and they were looking to seek a better way to get access for small time recreational access to the pond, which would probably take the form of kayaks, clamming. When I was there last putting the stakes in, there was some shellfishing going on there. Pretty vigorous excavation just seaward of the salt marsh. And one of the things about this proposal is that I was engaged with both 100 and 98, and it's father-son families. And the question came, 2 catwalks, 1 catwalk. And it's my understanding that the families will use this, so there won't be a proposal at 100. And yet those stairs are still there, and they're functional, and I don't see them coming out, and it's not that 100 is not part of this application. So what's being proposed is an elevated, open frame catwalk, which I think is something that at one point I found some regulations or guidelines of yours that I read. I don't have them with me, but I believe we're consistent with those. There are other guidelines related to elevation above salt marsh, where we try to be 1.5 times the width.
Mm-hmm.
We're falling a little bit short on that next to the wall, but we don't go very far out before we're meeting that. It's a 30-foot length from just landward of the wood wall, and out at the end, because it's lightweight, very easy to manage, although I haven't, there's one of these facilities lies to our west, and it's got a wood stairway. But we're proposing an aluminum open frame tubular stairway, which would be an equivalent to a wood stairway. These are fairly common construction items. There's different ways to frame them. I've seen seasonal docks all through Pleasant Bay and Harwich and Orleans and Chatham. So the framework of this is very similar to what you'd see for a seasonal dock. It just doesn't have a ramp and a float. I've always, over my years, been a little bit astounded that some seasonal docks, and there's a lot of them, they often just jet these pilings in and out every year. And I've explored different ways of not doing that. And so what's proposed here are helical screw anchors that would support fabricated boxes that would receive the posts just at the mud line or slightly below, so that each year, or twice a year, let's say just for the install, the crew comes and carries these bents into position. They just take a teaspoon or a trowel and they clear out the box, they set the post in, pin it, and then the braced bents are functionally stable. And so you don't jet the salt marsh time and time and time again. And the occupation, I think I calculated it less than a square foot. I have the number in the write-up. But if this dock is installed routinely, it's pretty quick. So I don't see a lot of damage occurring to the salt marsh as a result of the yearly, twice yearly activity that would install it and remove it. everything can be hand carried into place, and that's how we see it working. So there's not much to say, except that it is a seasonal structure. We know it needs a special permit. We are just getting past the high tide line here. There has been flood tides in the Oyster Pond and Stage Harbor that are related to the barrier beach changes off of, out in the Monomoy area. There's a lot more water getting in here lately. But as far as the numbers go, we are proposing something, the stairway, just seaward of the high tide line, the average high tide. And so we know we're headed to the Board of Appeals for a special permit, quite sure. And we've spoken to our present attorney, Mr. Litchfield, about his preparing that application.
Okay,
So we know we're going there and we're in process.
okay.
So that's the summary of this. Happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you very much. To be filed. And so aluminum stairs, and they're seasonal, the whole is seasonal?
The whole thing is
So what is the material of the decking itself?
The structure, depending upon restrictions, this is the kind of lumber size that would be basically store-bought. So it would likely be an ACQ, which is, you know, fir or yellow pine that's treated with, it's not CCA, but it is a treatment. It is possible to use hardwood, green hard, bents, piling pairs. They're heavier, but that can be done.
On the support pieces that go
Yes.
in? Yes, if that's the part that's coming into contact with the waterway, yes. The upper decking and is it one handrail or two?
I think it would be two, but
Probably
there's
two,
options
I
for
think.
people. It's
Yeah.
narrow. It might make more sense if somebody elects for one, because if you're carrying something, it might just hang over a little bit, but you
Yeah.
do get a little bit more width with one handrail. But I've probably designed the cross-section with two, leaving it as an option. There is a
Okay.
profile and a detail in there somewhere.
Okay. Natural wood, all right. We need to run this by a number of different entities here. We have to talk to South Coastal, Shellfish Advisory, Ted and Renee all have to weigh in. That is just beginning, that process. But since you haven't yet filed, we're good on time to
Right,
get all that done.
Right, the timing of that, I honestly did not consult with anyone about whether you see it first and then advisory, but I think we're going to prepare that and get into a meeting with them before ZBA.
Okay. Okay. All right, questions? Comments?
This is interesting to me. I've never seen anything like this yet. It used to be pretty much a pathway.
Yes.
And we're going to this, so yes. I have to see how this plays out with the different entities that we have to talk to. But the aluminum is supposed to be removed, right, in the winter?
The whole thing would be.
Yeah, the shellfish warden would be,
Yep.
important to talk to.
Yep.
Yeah. That's all I got. Oh, the other one, the other walkway that's in the water on the other.
You can see it, it's there today.
Yeah.
Right, could that be removed as a mitigation also? I mean, it's
Oh, I see.
pretty,
Well, the one that's in the plan.
the other one.
We're not proposing to touch that on 100 Oyster Pond Furlong. I thought
Yeah.
you might be referring to the other facility that's
It's
a
all the
lot like
same,
ours.
same owner though, yeah, because it's sitting in the water, so that, I don't care. Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Hi, Bob, how are you?
Great,
We
thank
have
you.
the same name, you know.
I'm going to try not to forget that.
There's a lot of trash in the marsh.
Oh,
that
the
has to
rack
be-
material,
They
yeah,
clean that
that's
up every year.
what floats in. Right, I've noted.
Some styrofoam as well, blue styrofoam.
Yep,
That wooden wall, you call it a wall, or a bulkhead, or whatever you want to call it, it's falling out, it's separating from the earth,
Yes,
Is
it's
that gonna be
distressed.
Is that going to be dealt with?
It could be. I did speak with the applicants about adding that to this application, and I've had experiences where, not that you can't handle it, but we just didn't want to put too much at you. I saw that the wall is distressed, but I don't see a serious erosion problem yet, and that should be monitored. If we're going to have continual high water in that pond and perhaps storms, you could see increased erosion, and then I think someone would come to speak with you about taking some repairs to that, but not right now.
Because the wall is about maybe 1 or 2 inches away from the earth, and the posts that hold that wall don't look very strong, and they
Right.
look like they're
Well, it's
gonna
still
give
standing.
way.
Yeah, it's
I-
been there for a long time.
I always say it stood the test of time, but it's being asked to deal, I think this past winter was, you could see the rack material is right up over it. So that's what caused some more of that distress. I think we would want to look at that, but, and they've got no problem with coming back before you to do some, whatever would be needed. But to, propose a new wall in there right now, I told them I did not think that would be necessary.
Okay, but
At the
this
moment.
new structure won't be attached in any way to that wall?
No, it spans it. We're starting at about 3 or 4 feet landward of it, and it would just span it, just right over it.
That also I wanted to add, you might want to consider the yearly trimming to be added, maybe to this order of conditions so that they have a permit for the trimming on the bank.
Did you see some pruning over there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well,
I was
I will
impressed,
look at
though, the
that.
lawn, there's no irrigation in that lawn.
It could be. It's
Yeah, I know there isn't.
good topsoil.
It's amazing, yeah. But maybe you could add in, to have the permit for yearly trimming, so they don't have to look over their shoulder if they're gonna trim, if it's possible.
I think we need to bring that to their
Oh,
attention.
yeah.
I'd be happy to bring that to their attention.
Just to,
You can't do that? No?
Are you talking about trimming the vegetation that's going to encroach on the board, on the catwalk, or that's going to?
Trimming for the,
Height,
yeah,
the
the
view.
trimming along the bank.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
is
is
it?
a separate
Oh, you
matter.
can't add that in as in a notice? Okay.
just had a couple of small things. The storage in the off-season, that's going to be brought up and stored somewhere.
When they get back by the house, they're out of the buffer. Although I know there's a riverfront area way back there, but all in all, it will be way, way far away from the bank.
And what about pictures of the marsh before and after?
No objection. We have them now, but they're a ways off from construction. That's pretty standard. Be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Karen?
Nope.
Bob?
Yeah, my questions have been addressed, except that I remember in the application that there was mention of kayaks. The applicant wanted to use it as a place to launch kayaks, and
I'm speculating on that.
it's just speculation. Well, if that's going to happen, very often we talk about kayak racks.
Yeah.
If they're going to be otherwise stored in resource.
They might be lying around on the ground.
Right.
Right, okay.
Sometimes you can put kayak racks on well, in this case, you could have put them on the catwalk, but.
Well, if the kind of thing is not objectionable, I mean, that level, it's not level, but there is an area there where a couple of posts and some spars would handle
Yeah.
2 or 3 kayaks. But and I'll mention that.
Yeah, mention it because it's inevitable,
Right.
unless they have a rack, they're gonna just spew
Yeah.
them out, and that's not good. Okay, thanks.
Please? All right. All right, I think we're set. I'm just really happy to see the existing situation removed with those planks that are in the marsh and destroying it, so, not normally a great fan of catwalks, but in this case, I think it's going to be a net
Yeah,
improvement to the,
It seemed like the use was going to intensify, and the marsh is still good, so getting something elevated over is not a bad idea.
then getting a kayak rack installed would be good, rather than people dragging them through the marsh.
So if they said yes to that, we'd add it to this
Put it on the
application.
plan and show us the details, and we'll
Okay.
review that.
All righty.
All right.
So
All right, so we all have some work to do. We have some outreach to do. You have some outreach. You have some consultation with your client.
I would think a meeting in August. I'm guessing that,
Okay.
or we could start with July. I just don't. Okay, so first meeting in August.
That would be
Can't believe we're
August the
wishing.
7th.
August 7th.
Yep.
Already scheduling for August 7th.
And we are totally full that day. What are the odds? So, no, I'm kidding.
Well, maybe we'll get a day over 50 degrees, who knows? So I'm fine with that date for
All right.
now. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I move that we continue 98 Oyster Pond Furlong to the meeting on August 7th, 2024.
Gordon, second.
Roll call. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you
See
all.
you back here then.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, Paul, we have one more.
One more, thank you, Madam Chair.
and the
Last on the agenda is 500 Shore Road, Heather Butler, map 16G, parcel 3DAS, DEP number SE10 3681. Proposed project, construction of a beach access staircase within the pedestrian access easement located at 500 Shore Road.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name's Don Bracken. I'm a professional civil engineer and professional surveyor with Bracken Engineering out of Buzzards Bay. I'm here representing the applicant, Heather Butler. Also, I'm here with TJ Hurry, the attorney from Ms. Butler.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I gather most of you are very familiar with this location. You just reviewed a project to the south of this, so I won't go through any of the details on the site location. So Ms. Butler and 4 other property owners that live off of Aunt Lydia's Lane, located across the street on opposite Shore Road where this project is taking place, have pedestrian rights along a 10-foot strip along the southern border of number 500. So what we're proposing here, in order to provide safe and adequate access utilizing the easement, is a staircase, beach stairs, run approximately 133 feet long. As you can see from the plan, it's a combination of steps and platforms in order to traverse the changing profile along that easement area. By the way, the code requires a landing every 12 feet, so we have that for every 12-foot vertical drop. In total, there's a 53-foot vertical drop from where the top landing is, locating at the top of the coastal bank. So the coastal bank in this situation, as I'm sure you're aware, adjacent to the beach, has just been restabilized with corals and some vegetation. The remaining coastal bank is a wooded, vegetated bank defined by DEP as a coastal bank where a velocity flood zone intersects the bank. The slope exceeds the requirements, so that basically the way I would look at this is there's 2 coastal banks. There's a coastal bank that was just revegetated, and then there's a vegetated coastal bank. As you can see on the plan, the stairway, let's see, hopefully this works. Yeah, so the stairway is on the eastern portion, obviously, of the easement, and then the remaining portion of the easement, there's a slight footpath, but today there really is no defined footpath in that area. We did locate a footpath that runs, from this point down about halfway where the stairs are proposed, and then it sort of peters out. So there has, been historically access, as you can tell from this footpath going down to the beach area. The walkway itself, we have a cross-section of that. We're proposing 4 feet from the outside edge to the outside edge of where the posts are. The actual walking surface will be 3.4 feet wide. We're also proposing, similar to the other project, is an aluminum set of stairs at the last landing to the beach. We do have a proposed location for the stairway when it will be removed seasonally up at the top of the coastal bank on this side near this property line. So I was fortunate to be the last one to get some education on working in Chatham. So I understand we're going to have some homework based on the previous discussions. But that's pretty much it for the initial presentation. And as you're probably aware, we haven't heard back from Natural Heritage yet. So obviously we need those comments back, I think, before the next meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. It's unusual, I'll say, to receive an application from an entity that is not the homeowner, that has some other right. So we don't have there is no, as far as I'm concerned, we don't have an existing requirement that one prove their right to implement their project should we choose to permit it. But that said, given what we know from last week's presentation from the homeowners at 500 Shore Road, they do not believe, apparently, because they wrote and said, and I think that letter was posted, that there's a legal right, that your pedestrian access is limited to pedestrian access on your feet, and that does not entitle the easement holder to construct a structure. We don't know, and we do not get involved in private property rights disputes. We leave it to the different easement holder and the property owner to work that out. I don't know whether that's going to happen in this case, whether there will be some sort of resolution, amicable agreement reached. But what concerns me and what I care about at the moment is, as you see, we're sitting here at 4 o'clock, the time and the burden on the Conservation Commission. And I'm a little bit reluctant to wade deeply into spending time assessing an application that at the end of the day may have no hope of actually being implemented. So not knowing, our consultation at yesterday's pre-hearing meeting, we landed with, we're going to ask town council to give us some guidance about whether we can require you to present some sort of indication that you have the right to do the project before we spend time reviewing the application and then writing an order of conditions. And then if this ends up in litigation, who knows? It's just, it could go any number of ways. So we need some guidance, because we truly are not going to get involved. With all of that said, I think your plan is pretty straightforward. I really don't want to get involved into reviewing it in any detail now, other than to remark it's pretty standard for what these coastal bank and these steep, long banks, what it would look like with the seasonal component at the end. But I would like to continue this until we have a chance to confer with town council on what we are advised to do, and to keep us out of the middle, where we do not have any desire to be.
Clearly understood.
Okay, so, and you also you'll need ZBA
Yes.
to go, have you filed yet with them?
No.
Okay, so we have time. This is happening this season. Okay, that's good news, because we have a lot going on, and so does town council. So we will try our best to get a date in front of him as soon as possible. And my suggestion would be to continue this to, heavens, not September, June the 12th, which is, well, it can't go to the 22nd, that's not happening, and the 5th is full, so that takes us to June 12th. So you can get your filing done at ZBA and get a hearing date from them by then, and then once we have that, and if we get a green light to proceed, we can do that in tandem with whatever date you get from the zoning board. Does that work?
Good with you?
Bear with me. Madam Chair,
Yes.
I was prepared to address the easement issue, but if you'd like me to hold off on that for now, I can certainly
Let's do
that.
it, once we get some internal guidance, then we can get into it. I mean, I've looked at the easement, I get, I can understand where you would go with that, but
course.
until we get guidance about how far into this we should go, I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste these people's time, so.
Well, it's certainly fair. Regarding town council's eventual opinion, it's a town-by-town basis
Yep.
as to their opinion. Would that be held by the commission and then released at the next
It
hearing?
may be,
or
I'm
would
not
it
going to
be-
ask town council to opine on whether you have a right. I'm asking town council to opine on whether we have a right to require evidence of a legal right as a precondition to hearing the application. That's the question, and I will certainly share whatever he produces with you. No
Understood.
problem with that. Okay? Okay, all right.
All right. I move that we continue 500 Shore Road to the meeting on June 12th, 2024.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. We'll reconvene on June 12th and see where things stand at that point. Thank you for sitting through, 3
It was worth it.
hours.
Thank you.
When it's
Thank you.
airport day around here, it gets to be a problem.
Thanks.
All right, Paul?
All right, Madam Chair, last on the agenda is
COC.
a certificate of compliance for 307 Bayview Road, Harry and John Hamagen, map 3B, parcel 1-10, SE10 3279. Demo and rebuild a dwelling is what's on the agenda. The project was issued September 17, 2018. It involved replacement of an existing dwelling, a new dwelling outside the 100-foot floodplain,
I remember this.
with portions of a deck and driveway within the 50-foot oar to a coastal bank. Some hardscape, aprons, retaining wall, and a step walkway was built. Mr. Moran has completed the checklist and submitted a complete application along with an as-built that was done, I think, just recently. And the only ongoing condition they have listed is the mitigation area and demarcation fence are to remain undisturbed in perpetuity. The applicant shall instruct all agents to explain the mitigation and area to the buyers, lessees, landscapers, and all persons taking over property in the future. There was one other one which wasn't included by the applicant, but it's in the order regarding herbicides. We can include that. Other than that, the photos have been submitted, inspection's been made, engineers certified, so we have a recommendation to approve this.
All right. Any questions, comments? I do. It was on the corner. I
Dan Cole.
remember. I do. It was early.
I have
maybe it was before
one
you.
question. When I went to look at the mitigation planting, it looked like there was a good 4-foot swath behind the plants mowed bit for a border. I could understand you would need a border, but it looked like a 4-foot lawnmower went in there behind the plants between,
Yeah, that's because the mitigation area borders a lot of invasive.
Yeah.
So we require them to keep a mow strip between the two, which doesn't prevent it, but at least it gives you access to watch and see
Yeah.
where invasives are starting to come underground, and it
Yeah.
prevents them from coming over ground.
Yeah.
That's why that's there. They're not the most attractive thing in the world, but they at least help preserve the mitigation.
Come up with.
Yeah, but all the plants are doing well. They're
That's-
all coming up.
Good.
All right.
I move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 307 Bayview Road.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Moran. We're all set. Thank you. Paul, anything else?
Mr. Croto.
Any,
No, that'd be it. I don't have any unforeseen items brought before the commission. I will just mention briefly, though, that to the chair and vice chair, we're looking at an upcoming Teams meeting on 97 Tilby to discuss construction protocols for that 3-month retaining wall project. So just
Right.
FYI.
Is there a date for that yet?
No, there's not.
Okay.
I asked Catherine to do a doodle, get some dates, and
Okay.
get it set up as soon as
do a
possible with the harbor master included.
Okay, but it's Teams, so
All
it's
right.
virtual, it's not, okay. That's
Yeah,
much.
it's going to be virtual.
That's
yeah.
easier to do, okay. Then
I move we adjourn.
Gordon, second.
Bob,
Aye.
Reese,
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, thank you very much. Oh, and Bob, you get to vote on adjournment. Yeah, who cares?
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye. All right, guys, just over the 3 hour